Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us on this Sunday afternoon for a specially called meeting of the Board of Directors. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the roll.
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Peck,
Here.
Director Hines,
Here.
Director Wright,
Here.
Director Wyrick, Director Campuris, Director Fortson,
Here.
Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Webb,
Here.
Mayor Stola.
Here. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you very much for being here with the Board of Directors and myself this afternoon. I called this special board meeting because I and the Board of Directors, who are responsible for trying to do everything we can to keep the city safe, are obviously very concerned about the increase in shootings, the retaliatory nature of these shootings, and the increase in violence that has been upsetting us and particularly, of course, upsetting the community entirely. And I know that each of us is committed to bring a stop to this violence and to do whatever is necessary to let the public know that we are going to try and solve this problem. So this purpose of this meeting is to hear from our police department on their efforts to solve these crimes, number one, what strategies we have in place already that to implement solutions to this increase in violence, and then to talk about new initiatives planned. We're going to hear from our staff on this matter, and then the staff will be available to answer questions from the Board of Directors. And then we will recess this meeting until 5 o'clock on Tuesday, when we will have an opportunity to hear from the public. We want your suggestions. We know that we're all in this together, and that as a community together, I know we can solve this problem. I know we can get a stop and slow down this violence that's occurring in our streets. So with that said, Mr. Moore, I believe the police chief is prepared to make a presentation. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor, and thank you all, mayors, members of the board. I want to thank Chief Buckner and his command staff that have been working very hard, not only just recently, but when we began to see the rise in violence late last year. I think the chief has put together a comprehensive report. We'd like to be able for him to get through the presentation because I believe a lot of questions you might have might come up in the report, and then go into Q&A with us. So at this time, Chief Buckner.
Yeah, and you have a handout, and if you would just make notes on your questions on those pages, and then we'll take those questions at the end.
Afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Directors, Mr. Moore, Mr. Carpenter. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to address the public concerning the public safety issues that are occurring in our city. With me, I brought my executive staff to be able to help me with some of the questions that I may not have all of the intimate information to be able to provide from you. I'm sure that this conversation will go from A to Z, so they're here for that purpose. And I don't do anything alone. I have a very, very strong group of individuals that are responsible for moving the ball down the field. To our viewing audience who is at home watching this right now, if you are not followers on our Facebook page, or like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter, I would ask that you take out your phones or your laptops and do that right now. At LR Police for Twitter, Little Rock Police Department Facebook, there are a lot of things that go on in our community that I think that everyone that lives, works, plays, visits the city of Little Rock should be engaged in what's going on with public safety. So I would greatly appreciate that from the community that you do that, and our agency would be appreciative as well. From a start, first of all, we're seeing a continued pattern of increase in violent crime that the spike kind of began for us for the pattern that we're seeing now in the fall of 2016, and has continued into 2017. Many of these locations are based upon historical spots that we've always had our challenges in, specifically with violent crime. The areas are no secret to anyone, and even many of the players are no secret to the city. But yet they still remain to be a challenge. There's also no secret that many of the issues that are plaguing our community are involving our African American males that are in our community, particularly those that are living under poverty conditions. Today, I would like to be able to highlight some of the things that we are being able to do. Obviously, you can't do this in 18 slides to give you the full knowledge of everything that's going on with the police department, but I hope to give you a comprehensive snapshot of some of the things that we're doing within our agency. Before we go into the slides, the one thing that I want to make clear is that the police department, we have a significant stake and responsibility in delivering public safety services in our city, which includes responding to violent crime, property crime, things that have put us on these lists that we've been on for decades now, and too long for everyone here. But I also want that the public to know that you cannot expect the police department to solely move the needle or get our city into the desired destination or quality of life that we would all want our city to have by solely depending on the police department, but we do understand that we have a significant role in doing so. Mr. Brooks, if you go to our first slide. What you see here is our crime control model. The reason that that's important is because when we talk about delivering the services that we have for the police department, it's important for you to know that what are we doing internally inside the agency as we try to go about investigating, apprehending, tracking, gathering information about individuals. There's a model that we use that's considered best practices for police agencies, particularly those that are serving urban communities. First of all, intelligence-led policing. And simply put, that is an ability to gather, analyze, and disseminate information. It's very, very important that our efforts and our energy, particularly when you have limited resources, that you want to make sure that you are very efficient in where you're delivering your energy, which is why we're an intelligence-led police organization, and we want to go into areas where the crime data tells us that we need to be. The next thing is hotspot enforcement. There are three components to what I would call a criminal triangle. There's victim, suspect, and location. When you talk about hotspots, there's no secrets to the hotspots that we have in our city. Many of them well documented, and they've been hotspots since the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now into the 21st century. Same locations to where if I were to ask someone in our major crimes division, can you tell me where 50% of our homicides are going to occur? They can pretty much select a district as to where that's going to happen, which is part of the problem. The next thing is a focused deterrence. Focused deterrent is kind of offender focused, where we don't go into a community with this kind of net fishing. One of the things that I've been asked to do several times is, Chief, well, why don't you do some kind of zero tolerance initiative that will allow us to go in and basically have martial law and anything moving gets stopped, and everyone doing any and everything that's illegal, we cite them or arrest them for those offenses. When you do that, you unintentionally you harm the community, because 95% of the people that you're going to come in contact with have nothing to do with the 5% who are committing the crimes in those areas. You inflict long-term scars with those communities. At a time when all police department needs to be building trust, we certainly can't go into the community and harm the very people that we hope to be able to provide us information to help us with some of the crimes that we're going to try to solve. And we can't do that by stopping individuals who have nothing to do with that crime, but I do understand we need to have a sense of urgency in how we respond. And I'll talk more about that zero tolerance later. Effective partnerships. We have several partnerships. The first and primary are our partnerships with the law enforcement agencies, local, state, and federal. We're members of just about every organization you can be a part of for our state. We participate in a Chiefs group that Sheriff Holliday has. We're also members of the Chiefs Association for the state of Arkansas. So those relationships are very, very important, that we're able to make phone calls at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. and say, hey, I know the jail is full, but we've got two individuals who are violent offenders. They've done the following. Can you make a space for them? Every time we make that call, Doc Holliday is going to accommodate us on that. And that becomes because of a relationship. Also, when you get beyond the law enforcement, nonprofits, the clergy, community groups, organizations that are serving youth, organizations that are serving seniors. It's very, very important that we have these relationships in our community, pre-existing relationships. When you don't have pre-existing relationships, this is how you get to those Ferguson moments to where the community feels estranged from the police organization. You have something happen that sets off that powder keg, and then you have that kind of moment to where everyone is wondering, well, how did this happen? That never happens overnight. It never happens overnight. That is the source of a lot of pain being inflicted with the community over year after year, and you see that kind of thing explode. Community involvement, last part of that. We cannot have any kind of long-term success without community involvement. We must have the community on the front line. And this is not something that we do from the perimeter. The community must be involved on the front line in addressing the issues that we're having. I can tell you that if you gave me 500 more police officers, and I were able to put them on every corner that you've asked me to put them on, we're still going to have crime in Little Rock. So I don't want anyone to think when we talk about personnel, yes, we need more personnel, but we need to do that in a strategic way. But giving us 100 more police officers is not the sole response that we need to have to these kinds of issues. People who are the most impacted by the things that we're seeing have to have a significant role in the solution, because that is when you see long-term success. That is when you see measurable success. It has to come from the people who are living under those conditions. And we have a significant role in that. Mr. Brooks, next slide.
Chief, before you go on, Mayor,
Yes,
we have set up a remote side downstairs in order for them to, okay, it's back on, so, okay. We needed to turn it off for just a second to get it remotely downstairs, so go ahead, Chief.
We created, in response to what we were seeing in the fall, we created a violent crime apprehension team. The purpose for that is when I was looking at the police agency, one of the things that I felt like that we were lacking is we really had no proactive footprint that would go out as a part of their 40-hour responsibility to go out and to be able to focus solely on violent crime, solely on the locations where we're having problems, and solely on the individuals who are part of the problem. And that's why we created that unit. That unit is about 90 days. Next week will be 90 days that they've been in existence, and I'll show you some of the things that they've been doing as a result of us bringing them together. A few of the things that you want to know about that unit, it includes 12 officers and 3 supervisors. They focus on location and offenders when they're going out doing their duties. And then the next thing, that they're intelligence-led. They take the data that we have. Some of you have been to our CompStat meeting. We also have a pre-major crimes meeting. And all of that information is put into a package that then Lieutenant Brown delivers the energy where we're supposed to go with our resources. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. You see our VCAT. So in 90 days, they've made 210 arrests that have resulted in 400 plus felony charges. You see the misdemeanor charges there, 41 weapons that have been seized, narcotics 52, stolen vehicles, and field interviews. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about the stolen vehicles. One of the things that I did maybe a year and a half or so ago is based upon what was considered to be best practices with the pursuit policy is I wanted a policy that was somewhat restrictive that only allowed us to be able to pursue individuals in our city for violent offenses. That's considered best practices because we wanted to do what we could to try to mitigate the unintentional harm that we could potentially cause to the public while pursuing individuals. There's always kind of a risk and reward analysis that you have to do as an officer while you're driving 80 miles an hour. The thing for that is our city, the crime is too high in our city for me to be that strict with our policy. Now, while we're not going back to a policy that I felt was extremely liberal to where we're pretty much chasing any and everything, now we're able to chase anyone for a felony offense. So you will continue to see the number of stolen vehicles that we seize or the number of pursuits that we're in because I moved the line closer to the middle for that pursuit policy because I felt like that our community could not be that far to the right based upon the volume of crime that we were seeing in our city. In the lower section of that, you'll see the drugs that have been seized and also money. And it's very easy for a unit like this that if they're not focus from the standpoint of leadership that they turn into mini narcotics unit. Well, we're not allowing that. So if you're wondering, well, why are we seeing more marijuana? Well, our goal is not to get cocaine or a bunch of pills. We unintentionally come into contact with all of those things because we're stopping the right people, and their source of revenue is drugs. But our goal for this group is to stop violent crime. We have other folks who solely focus on narcotics, but you will always see them having narcotics data, but that's not their primary focus is when they go about doing their day. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. On this slide, you see from an activity standpoint. So, okay, you understand now what we're delivering and how we're delivering it. Well, where are you delivering your services? So if you look at the number of contacts that we've had with the community, where we've either made a pedestrian stop, we've made an arrest, we did a traffic stop, any kind of incidents that the VCATs have recorded and that we've been able to map that, you can see the locations that we've been delivering that energy. Now, what you'll see if you look in the 60s through that 50s area and slightly into the 40s, that's the crust of where we're having problems. That area is well documented. Everyone that lives in those areas knows everything about what's going on in our community. And year after year, that is the meat and potatoes of where crime occurs in our city as it relates to violent crime. However, now, one of the things that we're seeing now, this is a surprise to some folks who thought that maybe if I live in this zip code, then maybe I am removed from that. Well, one of the things that's unique to our city is violent crime is pretty balanced in our city. It goes across our three divisions, and you see it across three divisions, but primarily you see it in our downtown division as far as the high volume of numbers. But make no mistake about it, it's throughout all of our city and very, very balanced, which is why you see a very balanced map here with the concentrated area in those 50s and 40s and 60s districts. Next slide, please. Here you see some of the information for our for the recent spike when we're going from January 1st to April the 27th. Look at the number of homicides that we've had. 2016, this time last year, we had 9 victims of a homicide. This year, we're currently sitting at 20. Shootings. We've had 57 incidents and 71 victims of being shot in our city. The reason that there's a disparaging between those two numbers is in 14 of those incidents, there were multiple individuals that were actually shot, which is why you see the number of incidents less than the actual victims. When you go to the bottom there, you see shots fired, calls for the city of Little Rock. Last year at this time, we had 691. This year, we're at 970. Now, what's also key with that, and when you look at the kinds of crimes that are going on and the kinds of impact that it's having on our community when you talk about the fear of crime. So even if you're not someone that can hear or can see someone being shot outside your door, when you look at the shots fired maps that we have, you can see that just about everywhere in our city, someone's going to be able to hear that at some time or another, which creates kind of that public fear and why we feel the need to be able to get in these areas to address these individuals. Last slide there is terroristic acts. So if you look at incidents, in comparable last year to this year, 35 versus 78. Look at the number of victims, you see 87 victims of terroristic act versus 243. Now, this is very, very important that we understand the context of this. This is the primary source of when you see comparable cities that Little Rock is compared to and how our numbers look in compared to some of our comparable cities as the size of our police department and the size of the city. All particularly, mostly urban communities. But the way that we count the math is what the FBI will require from everyone in 2020. We've been doing it, I'm told, since about 2009 in how we count the number of, you have your incidents and then you have the number of offenses that occur in that incident. So what that means, if I have someone whose home is shot up, you're sitting in the 1300 block of First Street and your home is shot up, and there were 10 people that were in that home that miraculously survived that shooting. For our purposes, we count that as 10 offenses on our math. Some cities would show that as 1. So that's why when you go to the FBI UCR sheet, they tell you do not compare yourself to other cities because everyone doesn't count apples the same way. Now, I still do it. I still look at all those sheets. But I want you to understand the math, how the math is done differently in our city versus other cities that are done around the country. The city manager has been to a number of different conferences where he speaks with fellow mayors, city managers, and there's a significant percentage of people who are not in compliance yet with the way the numbers are supposed to be counted, but we're doing math the right way. We don't do fuzzy math. But that's why you see, that will explain some of the reasons why you see us higher in comparison to these other cities. That's certainly not to say that I'm not telling you that we don't have a high volume of crime, because anyone intelligent in our community understands that. Next slide. Also, please go back, Mr. Brooks. Three of the homicides are officer involved for this year. We've had 3 officer involved homicides for the year of 2017, and we also have 2 that have not been classified yet. One involving an infant and another with an accidental death that will not show on the map if you count the dots on there. But I want to clarify that up. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Homicide incidents. So when I talk about that balance, this makes a clear illustration of that. If you look at the 20 homicides that we have, they're pretty much spread out. You don't see that large concentration of the homicides like you do for aggravated assaults or like you do for shootings. So here's why that's problematic. When you see the homicides, and let's say we're trying to go into the areas where we're trying to stop the homicides that are occurring, and you can see that net is very wide. Now, if I show you our next slide, go Mr. Brooks to the next slide, please. Now, if you look at the shootings, you can see that concentration again. So then when you're going with your resources into these areas, well, in one location, you're trying to be in a concentrated area because you're having a number of shootings. And then you look at the previous slide, Mr. Brooks, and you see the homicide homicide map, and you can see that's a lot wider of a view that you're having, which from a response standpoint with our VCATs and other units who are responsible for that, it makes it difficult for us to try to manage what's going on, because there's 2 different dynamics that we have at play there. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Okay, the shootings incidents there, you see that 57 shootings that we've had in the city. You see the mapping for that, and again, the 71 total victims. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Aggravated assault arrest. So if you go back and you look and see, well, what are the police doing about this? I assure you of a couple of things. If you talk to Doc Holliday and you ask him who puts the most people in the Pulaski County Jail, he's going to tell you Little Rock. If you talk to Miss Shepard at the State Correction and you ask her who puts the most people in prison, they're going to tell you Little Rock. This is why it has to be a comprehensive approach. We don't have an arrest problem. We can fill up a jail. We're already doing it. We're already filling up the prisons. And this is why I want everyone to understand this cannot solely be a police response, a police problem. We need everyone at the table to try to address this. It's very, very important that we understand that. Next slide, please. Narcotics, a huge problem in our city. Also one of the areas that as soon as I'm able to do so, that I would like to beef up because we don't have near as many folks who are solely focused on our narcotics as I would like to have. We have 6 to 7 folks that do narcotics for our city. That number should probably be double that, but we don't have the resources to do so. The reason that narcotics is so important, it is the #1 source of revenue for individuals and groups who are out here causing us problems. And if we can attack them at those areas where they're doing their revenue, because it's very, very difficult to be a needle in a haystack to catch someone doing an actual shooting or to catch someone doing an actual homicide. It's very difficult to do that. It requires a lengthy investigation, cooperation from a number of witnesses. But narcotics is an easier and lower hanging fruit to be able to go after some of these individuals that we know are causing problems in our cities. Many of the individuals during the 90s, during the heyday of the Bangor and Little Rock incident, many of them went to prison, long-term sentences on narcotics charges. But many of them were responsible for a lot of violent crime, but you try to get them where you can. But that's why it's very, very important that we be able to beef that up. So you see 36 search warrants that we have, and also there were 54 narcotics arrests made by our field services. Now, this does not include many other things that we do as it relates to narcotics that are not reflective on this map. Specifically, some of the areas in our interdiction are not included in this area. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. So when we talk about crime, there's an old adage that people say when you're looking at data, particularly when you're looking at data that you don't like, you will say that everything that counts can't be counted. And there's some truth to that. But there's also some truth to that we can sit in here all day and I can beat my chest in 2015 when we had a heck of a year. We had a 37-year low for crime in comparison to 2014. In the past 20 years, our city 4 times has been sub 17,000 total offenses in the past 20 years. That occurred in 2010, and in the past 3 years, we've been able to do that. Even last year, with an increase in crime, we were still sub 17,000 reported offenses. Now, in the mayor's heyday, when he was the city attorney, that number was somewhere around 27,000. So, while I certainly appreciate and I understand and I have sympathy for the things that are going on in our community, this is certainly not to minimize what's going on, but I want to put the numbers in context as to what you're actually seeing and what's going on. So why does it feel that way? Well, 25 years ago, I can assure you that no one saw a picture of the young man that we saw about 2 months ago that was laying on the sidewalk that was on Facebook. No one could see that. Social media makes it instant. Now when you have a shooting, everybody knows about it. So it feels like that the sky is falling every day. And trust me, if you live in some of the areas where we're having this concentrated crime, the sky actually feels like it's falling every day. Even when I'm reporting a decrease, there are some sections of our city that still feel pain every day, which is why you never see me shouting from the top of my lungs when we have a decrease in crime, because I know that there are still far too many families, still far too many neighborhoods who are living under deplorable conditions, and we have to be able to address that. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Next, go back, please, sir. When we talk about the FBI and what we're recorded on and what makes our report card, which is a big part of how the city manager and the mayor and you all evaluate me. But there are some Part 1 crime categories that primarily make up our list for when we report our crime to the FBI. And they are, for violent crime, is homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. For property crime, is burglary, larceny, vehicle theft, and arson. Those are the areas that we report to where we actually graded on for our crime. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Federal partnerships. It's one of the things that people may say, well, if you're looking, Chief, to find officers to do more things in Little Rock, or why aren't you moving these people over here from that responsibility to move them over here to do something else? I have to have federal relationships. The difference between federal and municipality investigation is the difference between going in and taking down 2 individuals versus going in and taking down an organization. Case in point, a month or so ago, our relationship with the ATF led to the indictment of 41 individuals, gun crimes. Little Rock PD cannot do that by ourselves. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the federal authority to do that, specifically when you talk about our ability to be able to investigate individuals. The feds have latitude that we don't have. So it's extremely important that I stay attached to the hip with our federal partners. They know that, I know that, and it's extremely important that we do so. We have 8 officers that are assigned to those respective agencies, include FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, ATF, and the Internal Revenue Service. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Staffing. You all constantly hear it. We're constantly feeling it. We're constantly dealing with it. At the end of 2016, we had 523 police officers, which resulted in a deficit of, the next slide, of 67 officers. Today, that number is, our authorized strength is 593. We have a deficit of 65. If you go back and you look at the deficit map and you see that big gap to where we jumped from 21 to 48 during that year, and you wonder what happened, that's not all attrition. Part of that is because the authorized strength number was moved when we accepted the grants from the COPS office for 15 additional police officers, which included 15 officers that were hired by LRPD. 75% of their salaries and benefits is paid for by the federal government. Mr. Moore picks up the other 25%. At the end of the 3-year period, we're solely responsible for their salaries and benefits going forward, and also the pension pension contributions. Now, why is that important that we accept those kinds of things? Because in many instances, it gives us an opportunity to where someone is picking up 75% of 15 officers' salary and benefits. Well, maybe we can move that money to do other things in the police agency during that 3-year period, or to grow into that payment that we're going to have with those officers long term, because many of the folks who come here, they're going to work 28, 30 years with the agency. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. So then the next question is, well, what are you doing about the deficit? And what are you doing about these vacancies? Well, what's your plan to address that? I can assure you that we have very smart people, very committed people who are trying to find police officers for the Little Rock Police Department. We want competent individuals, we want a diverse group of people, and we will not lower our standards, even when we're in tough times, to be able to get these individuals. If you hire bad officers, you're going to end up dealing with those officers on the street doing things in our community that we will all not want to see. Number one there, you see the class that we currently have in right now. That class has 18 individuals in there. They graduate on August the 4th, and they have a 12-week field training period after that before they go solo. So even though you see that number counted in our with our vacancies, which I said 65, you can really look at that at 80 plus, because 18 of these individuals are not doing anything for the police department other than receiving training. So that deficit is a lot more than what it looks like for that initial number. The second thing, the COATS officers, our certified officers that we hire, we try to do that at least a couple times a year. Mr. Moore has given us authorization to do it as often as we can. We're going to try to do 2 more before the end of this year to get COATS officers in place. Our next class is expected to start June of 2017. There's a 6-week academy for them because it's abbreviated because they're already certified, but we still make them go through a 12-week field training because it's important that they understand that the dynamics in Little Rock are probably different from some of the municipalities that we've hired them from. If you're an officer who has got 6 years of experience, but you worked in a city that had 1,500 people in the city, that's a lot different than 200,000 people in the city of Little Rock, in an urban community, in a diverse community that has its challenges. So we want to make sure that everyone is prepared for what they're about to face before they hit the street. Number 3, this will be the first class under the new recruiting process. We're anticipating this to start in August of 2017. Expected graduation date for them is February of 2018. Same thing, 24-week academy, 12-week field training period. Next class will be November of 2017. Expected graduation date is May of 2018. Same thing, 24-week academy, 12-week field training. So you've heard a lot about the $120,000 that we invested with our new hiring process, to be able to go through that, to make sure that we're retaining qualified candidates at a higher volume than we've been seeing with our old process. This class will be the first class that will be fully vetted through the entire new processes, when you will see that in February of 2018. I hope to get those numbers up, but I'd rather under-promise and over-deliver, which is why you see that number remaining at the 30 to 40, but I would love for that to be in the mid-40s when we're doing so. We'll see how that goes. They're expected to graduate in August of 2018. Same thing with the academies and field training. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. Few key components that I wanted to pull out of that report. It was about an hour-and-a-half long report that you all received in the city talking about that. There's some things that we feel that will give us more qualified candidates in the process, and particularly with the scoring. Now in our new process, if you have police experience, bilingual, military service, or education points, then you can receive that to give you additional points after you've completed the process to give you a higher numerical score, because we feel that these attributes are very valuable and to what you'll be doing in our city and the type of job that you'll have. The next thing is we're working with a marketing company to create a brand for our new recruitment process. So expect to have that rolled out here sometime, hopefully in the summer, before we're completing for our new process. And then also our social media footprint. We're going to create a Facebook and website page specifically for recruiting that will be under the Little Rock Police Department's page. Also, I want to remind you that the city manager has given $5,000 for those individuals who successfully complete the 24-week academy. Now, what's unique about that is why I'm very comfortable, very confident about how that will move us. This class, now I don't know if some of my folks who've been here for a while will tell you, this class started out, who's currently in, with 18 individuals. Most of the time we lose about 10% in the first 2 to 3 weeks. We've lost none. They want that $5,000. So I think that incentive is working. Also, he came behind that and came up with another $500 incentive that if you are a city government employee and you refer someone to the police department, and they make it through our entire vetting process, they make it to the academy, sitting in the class on day one, you get $500. We are doing any and everything that we can to try to get people to walk through that door, but it's still a difficult sell. You see this profession up close every day on the 5 and 10 o'clock news. And many of you, and if we were honest with ourselves, if our sons or daughters came to us and said, hey, I'd like to be the police, you'd probably have a family sit down. Because we need to talk about the decisions that you're making. And if it was my son, I'd probably sit down with him too, to make sure that he knew what he was signing up for. I wouldn't try to discourage him, but I would make sure that he knew what you're signing up for. This is a difficult profession to recruit for. It always has been, and the illumination that our profession has had, some of which these black eyes that we have self-inflicted that have caused us have made it extremely difficult to recruit for this profession, and it's always been a difficult sell, and that will continue. Last thing, we added 3 additional recruiters and background investigators in the training academy to be able to move these individuals through the process a lot quicker, to try to get our process over with so that we can start our classes a little quicker. We're almost done. Communications section staffing issues. Communication is one of the things that I'll tell you, a gentleman from Kalia, we're a nationally accredited police organization, and he set me down and we were talking about some things, and we were getting these raving reviews about everything for our police department. We ultimately ended up with an accreditation of excellence for the police department, which is a higher standard. But he said, there's one thing I want to talk to you about, a couple things: communications and your property room. Communications, you all get the complaints. You see them. Your response was slow. No one answered the phone. Took too long to pick up the phone. That my address was not in the system. All of these things we're intimately aware of. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of money to turn around a communication center. It's a very taxing, very complex group that has to deal with a very, very stressful job, but we're committed to it. We're authorized to have 66 individuals in that center. We currently have 17 vacancies. Right now we have a class, I wouldn't call them a class because they graduate from the academy, but we have 10 individuals who've completed the academy, but they're on the floor now training, checking off on their books. There are a number of things that they must demonstrate to their trainer that they're able to do from a function standpoint before we will release them to be on the phone by themselves. Our next class, and they're expected to complete that sometime around June of 2017, but that varies from individual to individual because some individuals catch on a lot earlier than others. We also have a class that we're going to start in July of 2017 and also in December. On average, we get about 8 to 10 people per communications class. So your question would be, well, if you're having 17 vacancies, then why don't you just hire 17 people? We don't have enough trainers to do that. If I hire 17 people and let's say miraculously all of them make it, once they release and they hit the floor, I have to have someone who's physically capable of sitting with them to make sure that they're checking off on the things that we require from them to be able to demonstrate for us. So we can only logistically be able to take the classes of 8 to 10 in order for us to be able to effectively get them out on the floor by themselves. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. So what have we done in addition to the things that I've talked to you about in response to the most recent spike in crime that we're having? Well, we've created kind of a second VCATS unit, which is an expansion of the individuals that we have. It's 10 additional officers each day that we will put on the street. In addition to the VCATS unit that we already have, we're going to put 10 additional officers who have the same responsibility: hotspot focus, offender focus, at the direction of the same lieutenant, who have 2 additional sergeants who will be supervising those groups to make sure that they're going into those locations, delivering energy and effort to the people that we need them to do that with. In order for me to do that, we have to collectively take individuals once per week from these individual groups that will make up this 10-person team, and that is our Motors unit, COP, property crime detectives, and school resource officers. When you see the school resource officers on there are some schools that we have minimal activity in as it relates to things where the police are needed there, primarily in our middle schools. None of our high schools do we think that we will be able to pull this off, but one day a week or so that we're going to have to take some people from the Little Rock School District, from some of the middle schools, to be able to put them on this team to create this 10-person team that will be out assisting VCATs with what they're doing. We will continue our efforts with our federal partners, the relationship that we have with them. We hope to have other major investigations going on to be able to assist us with that. We also hired a new crime analyst. We had four. Mr. Brooks, who works out of headquarters, the supervisor. We had one in each of our patrol divisions, Northwest, Southwest, and downtown. But that was for the field services, our uniform division. So we hired an additional person for the major crimes division and in special investigations division to be able to share an analyst, to be able to do that from the investigative side. Now, why that's important is because now we have someone to where we don't have a sworn person performing that capacity to be able to try to take that data, analyze that on how some of these crimes and the casings or something that may be connected to another individual, another group, connected to a gun, some kind of correlation between a vehicle and something that will stop them. They're able to put this information together, turn it into digestible information for our VCATs and patrol officers, and we get that information out to the workforce. Federal grants that we have, and these are kind of self-explanatory when you see these here. The one of them is the technical innovation public safety grant. That's we wanted to create a gun crime intelligence unit to be able to solely focus on gun crimes in our city, which is the source of the things that we're having with the violent crime, and to have a unit that's solely responsible to be able to do that. And we want federal dollars to do so. We think we're going to be successful in that. The other one is a burn grant. Well, we've had those a number of years, and we use that in a variety of different ways. In the Project Safe Neighborhood, which allows us to be able to kind of comprehensively work with organizations who are also committed to some of the same tasks that we have, many of which are some of the groups that work with Dana Doucette and the group that she has, and she's certainly been monumental in trying to help us with some of the things that we're doing, particularly out in the community, because, again, we can't police do it all by ourselves. Next slide, Mr. Brooks. In the works, we have one more slide after this. We're a telephone reporting unit. We've already hired the supervisor for that. The reason that that's important, and the reason you see that up there, is because during our evaluation with our, when we had an audit done of communications, the number one thing that they said that we needed to do was to remove report taking from the call taker dispatchers. And if you wonder why that's problematic, that if you're on the phone waiting for someone to pick up on that 10-15 ring, but I'm on the phone taking someone's report for a bicycle that's been stolen, then you're interrupting what's going on with the flow of traffic, which is part of the delay that we have. So we want to totally remove all report taking out to a civilian function in headquarters and take that from communications. We expect that to be about 8 individuals, civilians reporting to a sworn sergeant. The next thing is a traffic safety unit that we've been approved to create. The reason that's important is probably one of the biggest complaints that we get. Our state requires our police officers to respond to traffic accidents. Some states, some cities, they issue state forms, or individuals have to exchange information, non-injury, and kind of do that themselves. Our state does not allow us to do that. So we feel like that we want a civilian group of individuals who has that as their 40-hour-a-week job to go out and take these accident reports, so that our citizens who pay taxes, who want good police service, are not waiting 3 hours for someone to come and take a fender bender. So that's why it's important that we create that unit, and we receive approval for that. The next is Shot Spotter. It's some technology that you use that basically immediately notifies the police department through our communications division of shots fired, sometimes quicker than people are actually reporting it via telephone. But it also gives us kind of the location to give us the vicinity as to where that shot actually occurred, to help us from an investigative standpoint. Next thing, our CAD system. CAD system is the equivalent of an engine and transmission for communication Ours is very dated. It's about 20 years old. Mr. Moore has committed to working with us. We're working with the city manager to replace that. We patched it as much as we possibly can. We're going to need to replace it. And if you're wondering why we've been patching versus purchasing one, it's several $1 million to be able to purchase a CAD system. Analyst Notebook is technology software to be able to correlate suspects, vehicles, and weapons, and many other things. We also hired a communications GIS person. He's in his second week on board with us. That's important because many, particularly West Little Rock and Southwest Little Rock, where we have new subdivisions popping up and their addresses are not populating in the system because we didn't have anyone who was doing that as their 40-hour-a-week job to make sure that we stay on top of that. Personnel study. We have money left over from VRN. VRN is the Violence Reduction Network. We've been in that program for 2 years. We graduate from it. I don't know if graduation is the appropriate word, but we will complete the program in September of this year in New Orleans. And there's money left over from that I've requested to use those funds to be able to partially pay for a personnel study. The reason that I need a personnel study is we do not have a comprehensive study that's ever been done in any recent history of our agency as to the number of personnel that we have, where they're deployed, how they're deployed, what shifts they should be working, how many people should be in individual units, how we deliver those services, what capacities can be converted from a sworn to a civilian capacity to put more police officers on the street, and the study will help us do that, and the city managers agreed to pick up the other portion of that, and we think it'll be kind of a 50-50 split. Last thing is a What Works initiative. A very smart young lady in our IT department, Melissa Bridges, is working with the city department to come up with these comprehensive approaches to how we go about delivering services. If I'm having problems in 5354, which is kind of ground zero for violent crime, then we want to be able to respond with the police department, public works, Dana Dissett's group, and all of the different services that city government has, including external services that we have a connection with, maybe through our PIT funds. And what that does is it gives us that broad footprint that we're all begging for, to not ask the police to be solely responsible for reducing crime in our city. And that's very important that we have that. One of the reasons that I want to highlight to you about one of the things about, well, why would you talk about maybe doing this in 5354? When you look at population for our city, Northwest Division, okay, we have 3 divisions, Northwest, Southwest, and downtown. If you were to take the population of Northwest Division and you were to put it as a city in the state of Arkansas, it would qualify to be the 5th largest police department in our state. One division. So, and then you look at that, so then when I pull the cap information for those divisions, Northwest had 10 cap locations. Southwest had 10 cap locations. Areas that are problematic, nuisance abatement types issues that we're dealing with. Downtown had 25. More than the 2 divisions combined. So when we talk about a holistic approach, we have to go in with every resource that we have to be able to attack some of the problems that we're having in these areas. I think that's it. Continue in our comprehensive strategy. At this time, I'm assuming that we'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
You did that last. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, Chief, thank you for that presentation. I want to initiate the questions by asking you to, as you mentioned on page 2, the crime control model, intelligence-led policing, and you mentioned adding an additional analyst to try and work with the major crimes on the issue of trying to figure out who are doing these crimes. And
Yes, sir.
You talked about hotspot enforcement with the knowing about the victims, the suspects, knowing many of the suspects in the location. Tell me how our violent crime reduction unit and this additional 10-unit member is going to try and target and isolate those particular individuals.
Well, it's the same premise for both units. Hotspot, as far as location, offender, the data based upon the intelligence that we have, and let's say we have 2 individuals or groups of individuals who are in conflict with one another. Then the overlapping of having this additional VCATS group to when let's say if they're doing the midday, that they can go and try to apprehend or deal with these areas, versus with our normal VCAT unit, we may have evening hours to do that. So we've expanded the amount of time that we're able to attack those areas. And then we also have 10 additional individuals that are focused on the individuals who may have warrants. We also take out with us sometimes our probation and parole folks. So we have a number of individuals who have absconded. So if they have someone that we know is causing us problems, then if we can get those individuals picked up, now we've got 10 additional people who's going to do those kinds of things. So it's kind of a broader net that we're casting with what VCAT is able to do, because we have 10 more individuals that are providing that service.
Well, I understand that we've got some pretty good ideas on who these suspects are, and I hope that we can really focus and target that issue on those individuals, and clearly using our other jurisdictional departments, the parole and probation, the Marshal's Office, the U.S. Marshal's Office, and others, I think would be very, very helpful to try and really begin to clamp down on that particular group of people that we know are doing these things.
Yes, sir.
One other thing, and I know people are probably going to jump around on various issues. It's continuing to be troubling for all of us that it takes about 60 weeks to get a police officer on the street, 6 months to get a person hired,
Yes,
6
sir.
months in our academy, and then 3 months on ride along. So I hope that we will look, Mr. Moore, on what we can do to speed up that front end issue. We continue to hear, board members and myself continue to hear about people who don't. They don't hear from us enough, and therefore they go and hire on them with other departments, and we get countless anecdotal information about that. And I know that's a challenge. I know we're working on it, but we really need to try and not reduce the issue of professionalism, but if we can get the application process sped up, so that we can get that deficit picked up. I know there's not a direct correlation between the number of officers on the streets and reducing violence, but I'm confident that it'll have an impact. I'm confident it'll have a positive impact. So, Mr. Moore, I want you to get with HR and the police department, and let's see if we can find a way, particularly to get that 6 month average reduced down. Director Fortson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you and your force face a very difficult challenge, and I want you to know that I appreciate it and am supportive.
Thank you.
If you would, go back to the slide on page 14. The mayor touched on the entire staffing question.
Yes, sir.
The time I've been on this board, it seems like every year we've chased that moving target. We've always been under authorized staff, and I assume in order to do an adequate policing job for this city, that authorized staffing level means something. That should be the number we have to
Yes, sir.
fill the challenges that the professionals feel we need to meet.
Yes, sir.
Because none of us up here are experts in criminology, and we hear what's said. That's why we hire you and Mr. Moore and others who are experts in this field to give us guidance about what's needed to adequately police this town. And we're still, right now today, you said 65 under. And we had a presentation some 6 or 8 weeks ago from your plans for a recruiting approach.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed we have 18 recruits currently in the academy. We have a goal of 30 to 40 in the next 2 go-arounds. To my knowledge, we've never been able to reach those goals, and I'd like some thought about how we're going to change that paradigm. Are we going to be able to actually recruit what we say we're going to get now, and if so, how are we changing to get that way? And I think parallel with that, and maybe a question for Mr. Moore, is as we all know, those vacancies and those authorized but unfilled positions are one way the budget in this city stays balanced. If we really fill it, we're going to have to make some budget alterations in order to meet it. But I'd be interested in your comments on how you see us being able to even recruit that number when up to now we have not been that successful.
Well, there are a few things at play there. The first, if I put it under, I guess, three different umbrellas: recruitment, retention, and then application process. Application process is the beginning when we first come into contact with the individual who has expressed an interest in becoming a police officer. We feel that this new process that now has a composite scoring system, rather than to Mr. Richardson's consistent complaint was we would have objective tests, pass, fail, and then you were numerically scored on your structured interview. Well, now you will receive a score from 4 different areas within the process, and with that, you will have a composite score. So it gives us an opportunity to be able to retain more qualified candidates that we feel in the process. So it increases that number from, let's say, normally we come to the final stage of background investigations to where we would have 70 individuals. Well, now hopefully we can have 150 individuals who have to go through background. We're still going to lose a significant number of them because of the backgrounds of some of these individuals that come before us. The next part of that is the retention piece. One of the things that our FOP representatives and Mr. Moore are working on is what kind of incentives can we put in place to keep an individual from walking out the door at the 28-year deadline, which is the number of years you need of service for retirement. So Mr. Moore is one to look at what kind of retention incentives that we can have, because one of the challenges that we have with that is if you are a police officer and you've decided that you don't want to go through the drop program, and you say that, hey, the heck with this, I'm ready to move on and go do something else. Well, there's really no carrot for that individual to stick around financially. And the reason for that is because retirement guarantees you a 3% annual increase of your pay. Whereas we're offering 1.5, 2%, if we're lucky, because of the amount of money that Mr. Moore has at his disposal to be able to negotiate these contracts. So the candidate's going to, well, not the candidate, but the officer's going to say, well, I'm going to take the guaranteed 3% every year. Because look what that does over a 5-year period. So that's an issue. So we're working on that. And then the other part of that is to make sure that we have a very robust reaching out of recruiting, that we're getting as many people as we possibly can through the door and in the process, and to the mayor's point, to be able to cut that down. One of the things that the city manager has authorized us to do is when we have A-plus candidates, those folks who have all of the attributes that we're looking for, and we're fairly 90% confident that they're going to make it through our process. Rather than taking a chance on losing that individual because it's taken us 6 months to hire them, we're going to hire them in these kind of auxiliary civilian type capacities so that they're already under the city's umbrella until we can complete them through the hiring process to start the academy class. So that's some of the things. There are other things that we will look to try and do, but we have to kind of approach it from those 3 avenues in order to be able to get to those numbers. I feel pretty confident that we will be able to increase the number of folks that we're bringing through the door, and particularly the fact that we're being allowed to do 3 classes a year versus 2. And when you have that many application periods that we have for people to get in the process and get engaged, I think that will increase that. And I think there are a number of people who have applied for this job over the years, and you all have met them and come up to you in stores, and even me, who said, hey, there was a gentleman that I had who was a manager in Kroger's. And Kroger's is a reputable company. It's a Fortune 500 company, and this guy was a manager there, and he said he failed the structured interview. So, I don't know what he said when he was in there. There could have been something, but those are the kind of things that we want to remove to make sure that qualified people are not being knocked out of our process.
I commend you on the efforts to retain people, because I think it seems to me like almost every board meeting we have another retirement of some member of your force with many years of service, and losing that experience has got to hurt. One other thing that was a disappointment to me, and maybe I expected too much from earlier conversations, and I'm not too sure where I heard this, but I was under the impression that we felt like we could get maybe as many as 20 or more certified officers from other jurisdictions by the fact that we offer more pay by active recruiting, and I think you said you have 5 or 6 coming in now, which is lower than the number. Maybe I was under a wrong impression, but that seems like a small
We
number.
do feel like that we will have more codes officers under the new process, particularly, again, that sticking point that's been that thorn for everyone has been that structured interview. With the new process, structured interview was pass-fail. What in the old process, structured interview was pass-fail. Under our new process, structured interview, you will receive a numerical score, and it's a part of your composite score. So that will increase the number of individuals, because we have a lot of codes officers who were failing the structured interview, which is a little bit alarming because these people have already been in the profession, which begs the concern, what's going on with the structured interview. So we're in the process of modeling, looking at that model to make sure it's doing what we want it to do. If we have to turn the dial 2 clicks to the left or right, we will certainly do so, but it's kind of a moving target for us right now, but that's something that we certainly hope to be able to do. But lastly, I will tell you that there are a number of people that want to come to Little Rock because they see that us moving lines with our pay and things of that nature. But our process it does a really good job of making sure that we get the right people through the door. And some people, even though they may be a police officer somewhere else, I don't want their discipline files on my desk because I already have enough for the people that we have.
I'll let the mayor recognize others. Other than one other comment, and that is I'm glad to see that you're planning on increasing your staffing in the in the response areas.
Yes, sir.
And I would urge you to do that rapidly, because one of the things that most concerns and alarms citizens is to call 911 and get no answer.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's extremely critical.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Director Richardson, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I apologize for being late. I had car problems. I want to dovetail a question that both you and Gene raised. To couch it, is it the hire more police is going to be all and do all? It's going to be the panacea. Chief, do you think we can police our way out of this? Is policing the solve? I was asking the chief. Do you think this issue we can police our way? I saw you recently at the scene of a double shooting with a couple of youngsters, and you made that point. You made that that reference. Bruce, I saw you at the funeral of a little 3-year-old boy, and the one thing you kept making reference to, we can't police our way out of it. Can we police our way out of this?
We cannot, and and if people look at our schedules, and one of the things that I went to Chief Finks about, and we had a shooting one morning to, I believe, the 2 gentlemen that you're talking about. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. They were involved in a shootout between some individuals on a porch and these 2 young men, juveniles, I believe, in a stolen vehicle, in a shootout at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'm saying to Hayward, well, Finks, why was VCAS not out there? Well, Chief, because you told me to move him to the evening. Because people are shooting each other at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then when he gets shot, he runs into a church where he should have been before he got shot. And to your point, the police, we have a significant responsibility. But until we change the socioeconomical conditions that are occurring in these areas, we will continue to be on this treadmill to nowhere and frustrated.
So simply put, we can't police our way out of unemployment or underemployment.
We cannot.
We can't police our way out of a disproportionate number of liquor stores and convenience stores in certain parts of our community.
We cannot, and I will tell you the difference between communities that have relatively low crime and communities that have high crime is they don't allow you to build a liquor store next to their school. Some communities don't allow that. Some communities understand collective impact, that when they say that they're going to call Miss Peck, she actually gets 75 people that call. So when you allow certain things to go on in your community, or when you come to the city and say, hey, well, why don't you do more about this high grass? Well, city has a certain responsibility for that if we've taken those lots under consideration. But you too, as the citizen, have a responsibility. You live next door to the grass. Why don't you cut it until we can get somebody over there? It's your neighborhood.
So let me offer my opinion on a couple of things. And last week, a couple of my colleagues did the same thing on the very last issue that we were talking about during their meeting. These issues we're dealing with, and whether involving different groups, they're not centered around names or colors anymore like we saw in the early 90s. Is that correct?
That's an excellent question, Mr. Richardson. I want to touch on that a little bit. But because the one thing that I want to make abundantly clear to our audience is that you will never hear Kenton Buckner say, because I know that sometimes our public feels like that if you ask an appointed official, well, do you have a drug problem? Yes. Do you have a gang problem? Yes. Definitively, we do. Now, are the dynamics the same as the 90s? No, they're not. The dynamics of the 90s, when you look at the things that were going on in the 90s, you had gang colors, very pronounced, very illuminated. Then you had very territorial, that we run this street between this north, this south, this east, this west. You caught in this area with the wrong color on, you're going to have problems. And then you take into that, the primary source of income was drugs and weapons. That's the old model. Today's model, 21st century. The old ties are still there. So some of the people that these folks had put into prison 20 years ago, they're getting out. And now that they're being joined by their 17, 18, 15-year-old sons and daughters who are growing up in that seed. So the ties are still there. But the things that have changed is there's no boundaries. There's no longer associated with this group can only stay in this area. And then you add with that social media. I can't tell you the number of shootings that we will have that started from some kind of beef on social media.
Right.
And then you will have individuals who is associated with a Crip organization here, a Blood organization here, and they're supposed to be adversaries. But they've decided to get together to work on something. That we're going to get together and we're going to catch you leaving your liquor store to make your night deposit. Even though you're a Blood and I'm a Crip, the one thing that we have in common is we want to get this guy's green. So that's a dynamic, and it splinters everything out, and it makes it very, 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 very difficult for us to be able to get our hands wrapped around.
Thank you, Chief. I think that speaks to what some of us think about the economics of violence. So the color and color of the gang and the name of the gang may not be the source of the conflict or the beef, correct?
That's correct. And a lot of it is drug deals gone bad. I show up to purchase something from you off of Craigslist. Instead of purchasing, I decide that I'm going to rob you. A lot of those kind of pre-existing relationship things that make it very difficult for police to prevent, because I have no idea that two individuals are meeting to do something and something goes awry.
So I guess I'm raising these points to make the point, I guess, that whenever we talk about public safety, sometimes we couch it within the narrow confines as saying police is the panacea. More police, more police, more police. That's going to be the answer to our problem. We can solve everything policing. And it's nice to hear you say the same thing. And it's nice that Bruce made that point, because unfortunately, sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. Unfortunately, that helps rule or dictates or determine our policy. It's not the message, it's the messenger. Yes, and if I can get you and Bruce to keep saying that, I think maybe it may resonate, because some of us have been saying that for a while, that that's not the issue. Some of us have been saying that a lot for a while. And you made the point at the interview with the young men, the shooting. Bruce, you made the point at the funeral of the young boy when you were interviewed by the press. And hopefully, some of that someone's been saying for quite a while, but to hear our police chief say that and our city manager say that, it might resonate a little bit more. The other question is, as we keep looking at more police, more police, more police, if you had fully staffed, you were fully staffed, and you had everybody that you wanted, would this bring this down or eliminate this? Would it just draw it down, or?
When you talk about an increase in personnel, the one thing that personnel will give you is an ability to more effectively manage the crime, that our response times are quicker, that maybe our clearance rates will potentially be higher. We have more people spending more time on the substance of things that are causing you issues. But because it has nothing to do with poverty, has nothing to do with unemployment, has nothing to do with single-parent homes, has nothing to do with a child that shows up at pre-K and doesn't know the difference between red and green and 1 and 2, has nothing to do with those things. And until we address those things, those are the genesis of what starts a young African-American young man on the path to the criminal justice system. And the police have minimal impact over those kinds of things. The person that was responsible for having that child, they have the biggest opportunity to change the trajectory of those young men and those young women. And I purposely say young women is because we're seeing a significant increase in crimes committed by young females. We just had 2 females about a week or so ago lead us on a pursuit through the city that literally ran a suburban Suburban through a daycare. Females.
And the other point, I think you're aware of a lot of beefs, a lot of conflict between various groups, and there are a lot of people in the audience that are aware of those same conflicts and same beefs between groups who unfortunately happen to have gang names, but the gang involved is not the source of the beef. You're aware of those, you know about those, there are people in the audience who know about those, but you can't arrest them for just thinking about having a crime or committing a crime.
Well, you make
And
a
you're
great
difficult.
point.
It's difficult for you too, because the only way you can arrest them is that after they committed the crime. And it's difficult because after they committed the crime, they won't cooperate because they don't want you to do it. They did it themselves.
Well, I'll talk to you about a couple things that you've packaged there. First of all, I want to give credit that there are a number of men who have in the past had a life of crime. Who are trying to help the police department do things to keep young men out of the life that sent them to prison. So I don't want to say that everyone who's been associated with some sort of gang is doing something negative. There are a number of folks who are trying to help us, and I greatly appreciate them. But the other part to your frustration about, well, in the mayor's point, well, we know about many of the individuals that we believe to be responsible for a shooting or be responsible for a homicide, and we have a little more success in cooperation with homicides than we do with shootings, because the common phrase that we will get when we walk into the hospital at UAMS and say, hey, we're here to investigate your shooting. Could you tell us what happened? And the universal response is get the F out of here. I don't want to talk to you.
So
Universal. So how do you investigate that?
Right. So here's the question I guess I'm trying to lead up to. Would it be beneficial or helpful to this community, this city, to have a group of individuals in those parts of the community to be out there and to engage those folks who are having these potential conflicts long before they turn into acts of violence in respect to shooting?
Well, I think that there are a number of individuals who are already out there doing that.
Without paying some of them.
Ms. Doucette's group is working with a group. We've been working with a group of young men through an athletic league that they created. We actually played them in basketball. They beat us pretty badly, but it was for a good purpose. And there are a number of organizations that are doing those kinds of things. And I'm a guy that I'll be honest with you that I tend to look at some of these things through kind of a more conservative lens for some of those things, because I don't think we have a shortage of programs. I think that there are a lot of programs out there. If we were to say that this issue, that issue, we could probably name 10 programs that we have in our city to address that specific issue. There's one program that we are very much so lacking: parenting. That's the program where we have the greatest opportunity for success.
So understanding that, knowing that, then what do we do? Do we figure out ways to engage community workers or community participants to help address that need? If that's a need, that's a problem.
I think it has to be holistic. I think it has to be comprehensive. I think that I think another thing that, again, Ms. Doucette's group is trying to do is I think that we have a lot of, to your point, you know, a number of individuals who are doing great things, but in some cases they're overlapping each other. So how do we centralize that to make sure that we have kind of a central deposit of where individuals could go and receive help, to make sure that they're being properly helped, because you also know that there are a lot of people who come under the cloth of a person to help when they're actually a wolf. And they're going to take these dollars and they have nothing to show for them for the money that they're asking for to be able to go out and do some of these things.
So I'll be through in a minute, Mayor, I promise. The amount of funding and the source of funding came a year after we had our record number of homicides. I think in 1993 we had 76.
Yes, sir.
And I think we had a future low route process to recommend dollar for police, dollar for prevention, intervention, treatment.
Yes, sir.
And that $3 million amount that we had to cut back in 2008, we hadn't got back up to $3 million. That was based on what it would cost the city to hire 45 new police officers each year for 3 years, 135 new police officers at that time. And that's how we came up with that $3 million amount for prevention, intervention, and treatment. And I guess the support that we're talking about looking at is trying to figure out ways to put that on the same level of importance, the same level of priority that we do hiring additional police officers.
Is
Would
this
that
in
help us?
addition to what Ms. Doucette already receives?
That's after they had a sales tax in 2011.
Okay.
But would it be beneficial to our community to put the same kind of emphasis and same kind of priority on those positions or programs you talked about that Mr. Set represents?
I think that you can never turn away people who have a vested interest in helping you with very large problems. I think that there are many layers to the problems that we have, and we certainly can use as much help as we possibly can. The one thing that I would want to do before I drop money into anyone's pocket is I would want to make sure that they've proven that they're an evidence-based organization and that the money that we're going to give them, we will see a good return on our investment.
That's fair. But that should be broad-based, correct?
Yes, sir.
The evaluation should be, so we can't just evaluate some
Yes,
versus
sir.
others, because selective evaluation will lead to selective salvation. Is that correct? Well, that was my word.
I think so, sir. I didn't go to church today.
Okay.
Man, I'm not through yet. Because I have
All right,
two.
well, there are a lot of board members that would like to also have a shot at this too.
I surrender, but I have two questions, not for you,
Yes.
Chief.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
With Mayor and you and Bruce. What was the rationale from allowing the people who the sky is falling for not to speak today?
Well, we knew that there would be people here, and we knew this was an extended conversation. I think the point was to allow the public to listen to this and then to have a meeting at 5 o'clock where we're going to hear from the public and get their constructive ideas as well.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if we have this same level of emphasis or intent or...
Well, we'll continue to have dialogue with the community. Obviously, the point's been very well made that community involvement is critically important. So, and we're going to make sure that we have as many sessions as we need to get the community discussion and involvement.
And the other part, the other part is that's yeah, some people may not be able to make it at a time, Mayor, and I think that the other part is.
We're here today. Let us speak.
Well, I'm not trying to argue. I was just asking the rationale. That's all I'm asking for. And then, Mayor, one last point. I promise. What made this point in time a crisis for our community? I mean, there are some people in the community who I work with, they thought it was a crisis or 30 homicides ago. They thought it was something we need to address 30 homicides ago. What was it today that made us, was it a particular victim or a particular place where a crime happened? What made today that magical, majestical moment that we need to have this serious emphasis, this community forum, this emergency?
Well, it's I think, we've focused on this and we've had a conversation about this. We've talked about some of the advancements that happened. The chief gave a presentation not too long ago about changes and the increased violence that we saw between some extended families or people related to each other that happened back in the fall. That has continued, and there were several people, including members in the public, who wanted to see that this board and this agency, as well as other agencies of the city, are committed to trying to do everything we can to do something about this. And of course, the whole issue of community involvement and programs haven't been touched on, but I think everybody up here knows that this is not uniquely a police issue. It is a community issue. It is an issue for our clergy. It's an issue relative to what we do with the people that are being released from on parole and how they are monitored. There's a variety of complexities here that have to go into a collective effort on that. I'm glad to see we're looking at a Project Safe Neighborhoods grant. I see Congressman Hill here who can help us with that and some others, but it's not a one-size-fits-all issue. And the board members, many of the board members and myself as well, felt it was important to let the public know that we are not just concerned about it, but that we are more than concerned about it, that we're trying to do everything we can to try and make and keep people safe.
Well, I guess to some of these people in the audience, I think it was a crisis or an emergency. 30 homicides ago, one homicide is enough for some of them, and I think sometimes there's a complaint about people having vigils or press conferences about these homicides, and there's more emphasis or more concern about the press conference than there is why they're having a press conference, which is frustrating sometimes. And I think the other part of it is we have people in the audience, Mayor, tonight right now who are have more being affected a lot more than any of us up here in terms of proximity, in terms of family, and I think that for us not to show deference to them is really, really frustrating. And some of them might not have Director of Ward 1, Director of Ward 2 behind their names. Some of them might not have doctors in front of their name, but they certainly have experiences that we should take consideration before and after their names, and I think that warrants a little bit more deference in my opinion. And I'm through, man, for now.
Mayor, can I very quickly, I forgot to mention something in our response. We're also in the process of bringing back a cold case homicide squad to help with some of these older cases that we feel like that there were maybe 2 or 3 pieces to the puzzle that were not there to be able to focus on those cases, and we hope to have that rolled out here very soon.
Chief, thank you for your presentation. One of them, Mayor, would the criminal abatement program help us deal with these liquor stores, the disproportionate criminal
Mr.
convenience
Moore
stores in our
has,
community?
I won't say pulled his hair out, but has been frustrated about this. I've been frustrated about this. We've asked Mr. Carpenter to take a look into it. One of the and I specifically highlighted that downtown has double the number of with the other two combined there is because we don't feel like that there's enough teeth in our CAP program to be able to aggressively go after some of these slumlords or some of these businesses or locations that are causing us problems. I know that we're trying to see what we can do, but you know, their lobby groups are very strong and they do a great job of protecting their nests, so to speak. And the last thing that I'll say that I also forgot to say when you talk about you know, when people were asking about, well, why don't you go and just stop everyone that's doing this and that? But we have to understand that we live in a state that has an open carry law.
I agree.
So we can be aggressive, but aggressive with who?
Well, that's a good point, because there's no research that suggests that there's new research that suggests walking while black is an issue. There's studies that supports that. But Chief, do you think, in addition to enforcement and targeting with direct patrols with our criminal abatement program, would that help address some of these social ills in our community?
I think addressing the issues with the CAP program will give our good citizens, which are the vast majority of the folks who live in these areas, some sort of confidence, some sort of momentum to be able to get engaged with us if they can no longer see these houses that need to be either torn down or something done with them, these lots that have become crime nests, and these businesses that we know are operating, doing illegal things, and kind of turning a blind eye to that. And many of those things help change the quality of life to where people live, and just the things that you're able to see when you look outside your door.
That's a great point, and I believe you certainly wouldn't want the administration or department of your department or movement of your department to be influenced by the political manipulation or political involvement that we have in the PIT programs. And I think you're doing a wonderful job. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
First of all, Chief, I want to commend you on a very good report, and I'm gratified to know that we have a professionally managed police force that's very, very important to my constituents and very important to us as a city. So I thank you. You've clarified a lot of my questions, but I still have constituents that are very, very concerned about this.
Yes, ma'am.
For instance, I know, because I attend the quarterly precinct meetings, I know that downtown has more incidents than Northwest, even though Northwest is a larger area. My constituents only know that from October 30th to November 15th of last year that we had 39 incidents of gunfire, and they're frightened. Some people say they don't sleep in their bed, they get out on the floor. I'm hearing this. My phone is ringing from school teachers to people that live in isolated neighborhoods that they hear the gunshots but they're not affected by it, but they're asking me, Director Wright, what can we do to help you? You did clarify that we are having a new process, but I'm not quite clear in my mind enough to explain it to anybody else, exactly what's going to help us get more police officers in. I've shared with the city manager my experience with the process, whereby a young lady graduated from Euler and applied and couldn't get hired, and she went on to Quantico. So can you give me just a little bit more clarity on what your consultant said we needed to do with our process?
Well, first of all, we need to have a best practices in recruitment. How we go about sending our message, who we're actually contacting when we do a message, where we deliver that message, how often we post information, what kind of information is in the message, who is our target audience, is it 21 to 25, is it military, is it the professional with blue collar without a degree, and the answer is all the above, because there are a number of different avenues that you can do, a number of different capacities within the police department. So we want to cast a very wide net. And we want to make sure that we're taking applications more frequently than we did in the past to give people an opportunity to even participate in the process. Once you're in the process, we've created now, in the past, the old system had exam, and you were given a pass-fail for that. And then you got to the structured interview, to where you've passed 2 to 3 different stages. Now you're having a structured interview, which is kind of the gatekeeper as to whether or not you make it to the end of the process. In my opinion, there were far too many people who I felt like who were qualified individuals who were failing that exam. Specifically, I asked a very pointed question. I said, if I want 50 people in the academy class on day 1, how many applications do I need? I was told 1,000. That's a 95% failure rate in a job that does not require a degree. Something's wrong.
Exactly.
Which is why we paid $120,000 for someone to come in and tell us what we should be doing. They've given us a checklist to be able to do some of those things. So we created more scoring opportunities. I have military background. I have police experience. I speak a second language. I have college credits. I have a degree. So now you can go through the process, and then you can have those additional points added to your score to be able to get that candidate who maybe didn't do so well on the written. Or maybe in the structured interview they were nervous. But now that's all part of a composite score, to where now you have the ability to be able to have more of an opportunity to be able to sit in the class on day 1. We have more of an opportunity to have, rather than 50 people that we're going through the background investigation, which is the last stage before we select them, to maybe we have 150 now. Because the sticking point, for the most part, was that structured interview. Because we had large numbers of individuals who were doing well up until that point. And we're looking at that. And one of the things we want to do is make sure that we're not doing anything to adversely harm anyone. But we also have to be careful that we maintain that the test is valid, that our process can be defended in court, and again, that there's no adverse impact to anyone based upon sex or race. So I'm confident that we have a good plan in place. It takes time to get this rolled out. The police department is a very large organization, and things don't move as fast as we would like for them to move. But I'm confident that we will begin to get more people qualified in our process, which we believe will in turn give us more people to increase the size of our classes. And the fact that we've been approved with these incentives that Mr. Moore has already given, and that we can do 3 classes a year rather than 2. Average year for us, we're attrition out about 37 people. So if we just do 3 classes a year of 30 people, let's say 30, we don't even get to the 45. Now we're at 90 folks that we brought in during the year. That's in theory. So you're going to lose 10% of each one of those classes. But even with that alone, you're going to slowly chop into that number because we're running 3 classes a year rather than the 2.
Okay. So in that interview process, some of the complaints I heard were the subjective questions that people felt that they couldn't possibly give a correct answer to. So did that get reviewed?
That has been reviewed. I will tell you that in my observation and my understanding of the process, the past structured interview would ask a question of the candidate. And the problem that we felt that was wrong with the scoring mechanism that we had is that the landing strip to actually get a scored point for your response was too narrow. Too many things that we do are very subjective. They allow you to make decisions on the fly, but there are a number of different avenues that you can take and still be able to effectively resolve that problem. So we want a scoring sheet that allows you to be able to give an intelligent response, but it may not be the response that I gave or that this individual gave, but it's still an intelligent response and not considered a wrong answer. So that's one of the things we wanted to do with that structured interview.
Okay, well, that sounds like that might address the situation. Now, some of my constituents are asking me why we won't implement zero tolerance. Under what circumstances would you consider zero tolerance? Because my constituents, the people that are calling me, feel like we're in a crisis, they feel like we're under siege, and they feel like we're in a zero tolerance situation. So they're asking me about curfew and zero tolerance. So I am laying those questions to you.
I appreciate the question. I anticipated that question. It's a common question and stone is thrown at the police department. But I will tell you this, in nearly 25 years in this business, I can tell you that zero tolerance, it sounds good. And temporarily it makes us even feel good. But there are some unintended consequences that occur with zero tolerance. Now, when you say zero tolerance, I know you to be a professional woman who loves Little Rock as much as I do. You mean to go in and be able to get control of an area where we're having problems. There are many people, particularly some of the folks in our audience, when they hear zero tolerance, they think you're getting ready to start harassing black people. That's what they think when they hear zero tolerance, which is why New York paid a lot of money out for zero tolerance. Let me tell you what it does. First thing, the intent of zero tolerance is to give you a reduction in crime. It also holds people accountable for the infractions that they're committing. The intent is to restore order in the community to where people feel like that there's some sense of law in the community that they have. And then to reduce public fear. To where you feel like that you can walk down the street in your community without the fear of someone doing something harmful to you. Intent. Unintended consequences. When you do that, you drive a wedge between you and the community that you're trying to serve. The problem is that this gentleman is a part of the problem. The pain that I've inflicted on the community is I've stopped these three individuals who have nothing to do with the crime going on simply because they had a tail light out or because you didn't use a turn signal. Something that in other parts of the community where we're not doing zero tolerance, that you say, oh, we're too busy for that, we don't want to fool with that. So now I'm beginning to give these individuals citations because we have zero tolerance. So now you're putting people who are in these crime-infested communities into the criminal justice system to pay fines that they don't have the money for. And they're not a part of the problem. So it sounds good to say let's do zero tolerance. But I can tell you that the same people, constituents, who are telling you, well, tell the chief to do zero tolerance. We'll see what they say to you when we give them 5 tickets.
Oh, I'm sure my phone would blow up.
Or when I'm fighting accusations when this room is full of people telling me that I'm racist. Because that's exactly what's going to happen when you do zero tolerance. Now, we do need a sense of urgency, but we need a sense of urgency based upon the data, based upon delivering energy to this individual. I need to make his life a living hell without impacting these people who have nothing to do with what's going on. That's what I subscribe to.
What about curfew? I need you to address that on camera.
Great question. You throwing me some softballs. I appreciate it.
No, these not softballs. My folks want to hear your answers. They're watching.
They're softballs if you've been doing this 25 years.
Okay.
Now, curfew. Your 14-year-old son was out breaking into cars, and in the stolen vehicle that he was in, he shot at 2 people. It's 3 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday night, school time. I pick him up on curfew. Who are you going to return him to? The person who let him out at 2 o'clock in the morning? What have we done? I picked up a child who the parent didn't do their job, and now I'm going to return them to. Now, ask some of our teachers, if there's any educators in here, what happens when you call trying to get in contact with a parent to say, hey, come up here and check on your child, he's done the phone. Good luck someone answering the phone. Good luck having the right phone number. That's why we don't do curfews. Again, they sound good, but they don't work. And unintentionally, you get some kids who are just, there's a difference between a criminal and a knucklehead. I've been a knucklehead. I've been hard-headed, but I was never a criminal. And I don't want to be able to cast nets to where we're picking up these young men and again, unintentionally putting black and brown kids in the criminal justice system. I don't want that contact. That's not my job. That's her job.
I support what you're saying because I've always said it. It's until we build and rebuild these families, we're not going to get a handle on this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to hear from the public because I need to know what they're thinking.
Yes, ma'am.
I know what they want us to do, but we are a legislative body. We can't legislate our way out of this.
And
We
to
set
your
policy.
point, I want to make a point for our audience. One of the major problems in our city is that when we disagree, we push stop. I disagree that we should be having a curfew. And too often, we go to the opposite sides of the rooms and we're no longer interested in working with each other. If you want to see what that looks like, look at Washington, D.C. That's what that looks like. Our problem is when we disagree, that's fine. That's part of a healthy conversation. But communities that move forward, that despite our differences, to say we disagree on curfew, we disagree on zero tolerance, but we do agree that we need to have mentoring for these kids who are in school struggling. We do agree that we need to help these kids with math and science because we know that you can say that you want to be an accountant, but if you can't do math and science, you're just talking. You can say that we want our kids to show up for pre-K prepared, but if we don't have mechanisms in place, work on the things that we can agree upon, even though we disagree on some other things. And too often in our community, when we disagree, the conversation's over.
I agree.
And that hurts our city.
I agree 100%. Now I have another question, and
Yes,
I'm not
ma'am.
going to dominate the whole thing, but I do have to get these out because I was actually questioned on these things, and I can't give an answer, and maybe you can.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't see police patrolling through our neighborhoods in West Central Little Rock.
Yes, ma'am.
What we see are police driving through on 36th Street and on Barrow Road, and they keep on going.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't see them in the neighborhood. We don't see COPP officers making contact, talking to people like we had at one point thought that COPP was supposed to do. I'm asking you, will that return? Can you not do that? Or is that no longer our policy whereby we are engaging the police with the public like that?
Great question and fair point. To your point, in areas that have a number of challenges, police service, other than responding to calls for service, is going to be minimal because of the volume of calls that we're receiving. We receive about 600,000 calls a year. We dispatch on about 155,000 so of those calls, and that doesn't count for the tens of thousands of self-initiated activity. So when you see an officer driving through your area that you would like to be able to stop and talk about, hey, some of the things that are going on to this house down here with these folks who just moved in, you're not seeing that from the officers because they're taxed. They're engaged in too many things. And to Mr. Richardson's point, this is one of the things that when you do have your authorized strength, you can deliver those kinds of services to where we're doing police service rather than just enforcement in your community. One of the problems is if you were to listen to our radio, and I listen to it, and one of the things that you will hear on there is you will say, during our busy periods, you will have the dispatcher come over and say, I need a unit to copy on a shots fired. I need a unit to clear to copy on a burglary that just occurred. I need a unit to clear to copy on a fight at a school. I need a unit to clear to be able to do the following. Now, the reason they're saying I need a unit to clear is because they're already tied up on something. I need you to leave that. If you're not done with the paperwork, do your paperwork later. We have something else going on. So then when that period decreases to where in the shift to where we get to where we can actually have a little bit time to breathe, then the dispatcher begins to say this. I need a unit to copy on a call that I've been holding for 4 hours. I need a unit to copy on an accident that they've been waiting in the intersection for 2 hours and they have not moved their vehicle. That's why you see people driving by in your community and they're not stopping, getting out of their cars. Now, do we always have an opportunity for improvement? Yes. Can the police always do more? And I don't want you to think that every hour of our day are we saying that, hey, we don't have time to do anything else, because it's much like our kids. You got time to do what you want to do. So we certainly have opportunities for improvement. But I can tell you, if you look at the number of people that we have doing what we ask them to do, it will be very clear to you as to why you don't have that intimate contact that our people like, and why Ms. Atcott, Ms. Wyrick are so protective of having the few COP that we do have, because we only have a handful of individuals where you feel like you can get some kind of personal service for someone to be able to try to solve a problem.
Okay, I think this might be my last question.
Yes, ma'am.
But this was one also that was put to me, and you did state this during your presentation, that you all pretty much know who these people are.
Yes, ma'am.
That are causing the problem.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, why don't you give them hell? If you know who they are.
You ready? Well, I think we do give them hell. But the thing about giving
Why they still shooting and killing?
well, the thing about giving someone hell is trying to create pressure on them to make it uncomfortable for them to go out and do the things that they're going to do. If you've grown up from here, then it's as natural for you to walk out of your home and go and rob someone as it is for you to brush your teeth in the morning. It's difficult to deter that individual. That's in his DNA. That's who he is. Okay? That's how he's grown up. That's what he's seen. So it's difficult to deter that individual. And then the other problem with that is you'll have individuals who are actually family members of the individual who's either deceased or shot, who can be shot in broad daylight in a room like this and no one's seen anything. And then that same group of people will say, what are y'all going to do about that shooting? Why haven't y'all picked that guy up yet? Well, why haven't you come in and given a statement? Now, I'm not stupid. I certainly understand the repercussions of potentially giving a statement, which is why you never see me overzealously talking about people cooperating with the police. But there are several avenues that we have: anonymous tip, making a phone call, calling somebody you know in the agent and say, hey, I don't want my name on anything, but you need to be going talking to John Doe. He's the guy that shot that guy. Y'all need to talk to him. There are several avenues that you can do that kind of thing to help us be able to help you. These investigators, particularly when you talk about violent crime and homicide, these guys have a lot of pride. You don't make it to that level of investigating without having some know-how about yourself. And trust me, we don't like having 50-60% clearance rates. No one wants that. But when people won't cooperate with you, who are the most impacted by what's going on, how are you going to help them if they won't help you? So that's very, very difficult for us.
Oh, I know firsthand. I do sports, and some of the parents that we have to deal with, you would be amazed at some of the things that I have seen, that I have heard, and the lengths that they will go through to cause a problem because they don't like something.
Well,
But they
I'll
won't
give you
do
another
anything to
example.
help you.
I'll give you another example. You're very active in what you do with youth and what you do with outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're talking about let's go and meet to talk about what's wrong, we can fill a room up.
Mm-hmm.
Send out an email that said we're going to go pick up trash.
Mm-hmm.
See how many people show up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just send out an email and
Yeah.
request to have a coaches meeting and see how many
Right.
call.
Right.
But then they'll call the city manager and tell them we don't have any rules.
Right, but you complain about your neighborhood, though. See, so
Oh, I
it's tough.
understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'll be meeting with you on May 1st. I believe you got my email about an initiative that I've got coming. And it's Am I My Brother's Keeper? And it was implemented by the Obama administration. And I like your cooperation with that. It's going to be at the West Central Community Center. Hopefully you will be meeting with, if not you, one of your staff.
We
You
will
probably assigned
certainly
it to
take a look at
somebody.
that. Yes, ma'am.
You probably assigned it to somebody.
No, I know the young lady. She called me, and I think the meeting is on my schedule.
Okay, well, I will be there. This is very important to me. This is about having a weekend of peace, June 9th through the 11th. And it's raising awareness about what the City of Little Rock is doing in its community programs, all the things that we do have out there, the mentoring programs, the after-school programs, the summer employment programs, the reentry programs, everything that we have done as Director Richardson was talking about, over the years to try to help the community. And if these young people want jobs, we've got jobs for them, and we are trying to help them. But we can't help you if you don't want to help yourself, and we need our parents to be parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Webb, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief, and
Thank you,
thank
ma'am.
you, everybody, for being here. I was at a meeting earlier today with some folks who, many of whom are in the audience, and it was very diverse group of people from all over the city and a lot of different backgrounds, including a number of people who've lost children to violence
Yes, ma'am.
on the street. And a couple of things came up there that I wanted to ask you about. One, a lot of the conversation was about illegal guns
Yes, ma'am.
on the street and about gun buybacks. And do you have an opinion on that?
Well, we certainly know that, in both our country, our state, and our city, we have issues with guns. I'm a huge proponent of the Second Amendment. I think that you should always have the right to protect yourself, provided that you're legally able to possess that weapon. So I support the Second Amendment. I am not for open carry. I believe that concealed carry is more responsible and causes less alarm in the community. As far as individuals who are committing crimes with weapons, that is one of the things that we consistently try to work with our prosecutors on, to make sure that we're getting stiffer penalties for these individuals who may not have even committed a crime with the weapon when we catch them, but the fact that they are a convicted felon possessing a weapon, we would like to see longer prison sentences for these individuals. And the other part of that is it's very difficult to have a very strong anti-gun sentiment in our city when we appear to be so gun happy. We basically made it okay to take a gun any and everywhere, and then, obviously some of the folks changed some of the direction that we were doing in our most recent session to exclude some of the venues that we had, that we said that, hey, maybe we shouldn't do it there, but I think we should use that same level of discretion for other locations, not just because it's going to impact our football game.
What about the specific buyback?
Buybacks. Buybacks are feel-good things. They don't work. If myself, and I want to use different individuals, and this gentleman here are involved in a conflict, and I know that he's been shooting at me and I've been shooting at him, I can assure you that he's not going to sell you his gun, and I'm not going to sell you my gun. Now, these three individuals will probably bring their gun back. And it's grandpa's shotgun that doesn't work anymore. They got it after he died, and they want to turn that in and get their $50. It doesn't help the crime, because the individuals who are committing crimes, they know they need a weapon for protection and to commit crime. They're not going to sell you a weapon back. And that's why those programs don't work.
Thank you. One of the things that we talked about at this other meeting was about how people seem to agree, for the most part, that there needed to be a lot of community involvement from a real broad section of the community, regardless of whether or not it was a particular neighborhood
Yes,
where
ma'am.
there have been more violent crimes.
Mhm.
And I just wondered if I could get clarification from you, because at the beginning of your presentation, I think I heard you say that we need the community involvement in neighborhoods where the violent crimes are occurring.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know you've said you have had issues, like you illustrated a moment ago, of a bunch of people in the room, yet nobody seeing anything or saying anything.
Yes, ma'am.
And so at the beginning of your presentation, when you talked about that community involvement specific to areas where violent crime is happening, is that what you meant, or do you think do you think we need to have the community involvement from the entire city? Or just if you would clarify that.
Well, two things. I don't think there's a section of our city that doesn't have crime.
Okay.
So anyone who thinks that they don't have a reason to be involved, I would question where they live. The next part of that is we certainly need as many people as we possibly can engaged in what we're doing. You represent an area of individuals who are very diverse about the initiatives that they take up, even if it's not directly outside their door. Some of the things that you all are doing at Halls High School, which is a very troubling school that we're having a number of challenges with. So any kind of initiative that you can get into where you can share your time, your testimony, your treasure, your your talent with individuals to change the trajectory of a neighborhood, to change the trajectory of a young person. I encourage everyone to deliver as much as you possibly can to do that. Because to your point, and you make a great illustration, even if you can afford to send your kids to private school, you should still care about our public school system, because that's a true community. And that's probably where we have some opportunity for improvement. And there are a number of people, because of their financial resources, who do support things, who maybe do Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or they donate money to some of these nonprofits that we have across our city. But we certainly have opportunity where people can do more to get involved, even if crime is not going on outside your door.
Thank you. Just one more comment.
Yes,
I know we've talked a lot about the process and the money we've spent to learn how to make the process better for the hiring.
Yes, ma'am.
And just one more voice to reiterate how that's something we really got to keep pushing. And on the sheet here, it says that the new testing process, it will be the class in February of 18 before that is implemented. It's going to take that long to implement this process that we've talked about this year and we've been learning about?
Good question. The challenge that we have currently, the two classes that you see listed there for August and November of 2017, the problem is those individuals have already put the ball in play for the process that they're already competing in. So because we want the process to be defendable and valid, I can't change the process mid-storm for them, because then maybe this group of 10 individuals had this level of structured interview, whereas this group got another structured interview, and someone make the case that, hey, the process was not fair to me because you did something different over here than you did over there. Now, I understand that we certainly have a sense of urgency, but for a clean process to be 100% reflective of the new process, we won't have that until the February 2018 class. But you'll see those people being processed here in the late summer and fall to get ready for that February class, even though that class won't start until February. So it's actually, as far as starting the new process, it will happen this year, but that new class will not start until February of 2018.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Peck, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Come on. Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody that's here, because you're here because you care. Am I on now? Is this fault? Turn me on? Oh, hello. Sorry. Thank you for being here. Thank you if you're watching at home, because this is a community effort, and to comment on something Director Richardson said. You know, what did it take for us to get to this point? One is too many. Well, we're here now. And I have just two very quick questions. I'll be very brief. Chief, you've talked about the traffic safety unit.
Yes, ma'am.
I know this is something we can't police our way out of, but I think we would all agree that we need more police. We need more officers that can do police work.
Yes, ma'am.
And you made a comment that our state does not allow civilians to address things like a fender bender. You said it was a state issue.
Our state does not allow us to not respond to a traffic accident.
To a traffic accident. So what, is it a legislative process? Is it an ordinance? How can we change that in order to allow civilians to do this?
Well, I believe civilians can do it, and we've had civilians to do it, and that's our goal for this group that we're going to roll out. They will be civilians. What my point that I did not clarify, in some cities, police don't respond to accidents unless there's been an injury. Our state does not allow us to do that. So we have to send someone, but we want to remove police officers from doing that to free them up to do these kinds of things and have civilians respond to those accidents.
So that's in work.
Yes,
That's in the
ma'am.
works. Okay, thank you. And also, I wanted to a lot of people have made reference to, especially Director Wright and Director Richardson, Ms. Doucette's programs, her groups, and just for some people that might not know and Doris, you enumerated a lot of them. What are you talking about, Miss Doucette's groups? Just for those who might not know who Miss
Well,
Doucette is.
she has a number of different organizations that she works with. One of the couple that I've been working with her specifically that I'm intimately aware of is the reentry program. We've had one young lady who worked actually for the police department who was a convicted felon. Dana came to me with that, and you would really think that maybe it's kind of a crazy idea, but I agreed with her conceptually that what kind of message would it send that the police department is making arrangements to allow a convicted felon to work for the police agency, the person who was on the front end responsible for the felony conviction. So we thought that would send a very strong message, and we're trying to get other people from that program to be able to get the training with the police department, primarily maintenance or landscaping types of jobs, all the things that we have, but there are a number of different other avenues in city government. And then the second one is the group of individuals that we have, some former gang members who have about 20, 30 young men that they're mentoring to keep them in school, keep them out of trouble, that we've been meeting with them. We've done things with them with their youth program. We just participated in a basketball game that we had with them. And they have other initiatives that they're working on. And those are two that I'm aware of. There are a number of different other organizations that Dana works with who provide a service to where the city gives them funding to help them kind of move their ball further than they would otherwise be able to do, that we think help the city in general. But I don't know the total name of all of the organizations that exist out there.
I just wanted a little clarification. I'm aware and know about a lot of those, but I think a lot of folks don't.
Yes, ma'am.
And so thanks. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Director Hines, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your comments and learning some stuff I didn't know, especially on the VCAT. And I think the challenge for your department is to make that more public, because right now perception is reality, and the perception is it's and it is in some areas out of control.
Yes,
but
sir.
the perception in the greater community is that it's spread all over the city. And I think that for every day we have a shooting, we ought to have at least 5 perp walks. I mean, if we're going to get our message out that we're out there working, I think that would be helpful. Perp walks. I think that as we talk about it, I can't agree with you more that the police is not the only answer. Our Children, Youth, and Families Commission that funds PIT to the tune of $6.5 million a year is not enough.
Yes, sir.
And I think the third leg of that stool or that triad is our community.
Yes.
And I think that's what I hear you saying. From a standpoint of being fully staffed from the staff, what's your timeline on it? Is it 12 months, 18 months? What do you think with attrition? If we get, I know it's all dependent on how many folks we get qualified for each class, but what's your target?
I would say probably a comfort level that I would feel comfortable at to say that the current authorized strength that we have now, I would probably say 2 to 3 years before we would be fully at our authorized strength. But the caveat that I will give you is I don't know what this personnel study is going to tell us. So that line may be moved into sand as to what our authorized strength should look like, and then more importantly, what is our operational strength, what should it look like?
Okay. And that gets into my next kind of line of questioning. And some of my comments on community policing may have been taken as I agree that our community policing effort is worthwhile and should be done, but it's a very strategic, preventative, proactive method that takes a long time.
Yes, sir.
And we have to be fully staffed to do it. I think the things that we're seeing now fall under the short term, and to use a military police, a tactical version.
Mm-hmm.
And would you say in your estimation that the VCAT that's more of a tactical solution to our problems right now?
Very much so. Their job is to go after meat and potatoes and extremely dangerous individuals. And I felt like that we were not proactively doing that, which is why we created that unit.
And then you just basically almost doubled that size of that unit by adding another 10 officers.
Yes, sir.
And that's happened when in the last week to 2 weeks?
Well, we just put the plan together for today. Logistically, they will go into play this Saturday because it takes time with the changing of schedules and us getting all of the cars that they will need to be able to get out on the street.
And I think that's something that we've got to, and hopefully by this meeting is what we're doing. I think we all care. We've all been impacted by this. And Director Richardson, to your answer as to why it's important, this last week, one of the gentlemen I work with, his sister was a victim in one of these shootings. She was going to her parents' house, noticed a couple cars cut her off. She knew something was wrong. She had her 3 kids with her. She went to her father's house, went inside. They looked out, waited for the coast to clear, making sure nothing was wrong. And as soon as she got her kids loaded up, they rolled up on her and opened fire. And she wasn't in the drug life or the thug life. She just, I think, happened to be maybe a case of mistaken identity. I don't know. But I think that's what, and then 2 or 3 days later, we have the daycare center worker that gets gunned down innocently. Obviously not the target of what they were doing. And I think that's where some of the frustration was and some of the sense of urgency. But it's starting to hit home for everybody on this board. Somebody's personally been affected that the 6 degrees of separation is happening.
Well, I'll give you another illustration of what we're facing in our city and how dangerous it is for our officers who are out there on the front line. For the second time for this particular family, a couple of months ago, we had a few individuals attempt to rob a uniformed police officer. And I don't want you to check your hearing for what I just said. This was an officer working off duty at a location responsible for night deposits. Individuals tried to rob a uniformed police officer. What's unique about that individual is that his brother, about 25 years or so ago, killed a police officer doing the exact same thing. So when you talk about sense of urgency, we get it. There's not a lot of cities in this country where people try to rob police officers.
Right. The other question is on the prosecutorial side. I had a conversation with one of our state representatives and a senator, and the state legislature this past session, according to Senator Hutchinson, has opened up 1,600 new beds in our prison system for violent offenders. So
Yes,
are you getting help from the prosecutorial side, where our judges and our prosecutors in this county, the ones that you are catching for violent offenses, are we getting them locked up and are they staying in jail?
I will tell you that if you ask police, we're always going to say that we wish that the judges and the prosecutors would lock up more. And there are some things that they would say that they wish the police department would do more of. But I can tell you that more often than not, for violent offenders in our city, they prosecute effectively for the individuals that should be in prison. Mr. Hutchinson has done a great job of alleviating some of the pressure that was once on our jail system with state inmates that we had and getting them into other locations where we could actually use the jail space in Pulaski County. And they've done a great job with that. And there's also some other things that will be implemented as a result of the task force that we had that we will hopefully will be able to address many other issues, particularly those individuals who have a mental illness. We're treating that with incarceration and also substance abuse. And those are 2 issues that he is taking on, and a lot of governors have tried to take it on. But some of the things that I've seen early, I'm pretty confident, particularly with the number of beds that they've opened up, that our governor gets it, that we have to have bed space for our violent offenders.
Okay. Do we have any kind of top 20 most wanted list and I know your department's got great intel. They know who the bad guys are. So, I'm thinking, when we talk about public perception, I think the public just needs to know what we're doing. And I think the perception is that all they see on the nightly, we have to combat what's on the nightly news.
Yes,
if
sir.
it bleeds, it leads. You know how the newsmakers
Yes,
run.
sir.
So I think from a public communication standpoint, we've got to do a better job of letting the public know what we're doing.
Well, to answer your question, I wish it were top 20. We have a top list, but there's a lot more than 20 on there.
Okay. No, and that's fine, and hopefully the VCAT's that's where their focus
Yes,
is.
sir.
And I think we just need, and I can tell that because I will tell you from a standpoint, my constituents, the majority of people to talk to that aren't my constituents, the Little Rock residents, they're tired of hearing that we're short-staffed. answer, and I can't say I disagree. We have the staffing we need, and I want your executive staff and all the police officers I know to know that you have my full support by any means necessary to succeed in doing your job, and you will never see me not back you guys up.
We appreciate that.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And I would only say, I think that feeling is held by everyone on this dais, every one of the board members, as well as the mayor. So, good point. Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Chief, you mentioned that Director Wywick and I liked COP officers.
How did I know you was gonna go there?
You knew I was going to talk about that, didn't you? Well, you know, I've been here 25 years, and Director Wywick has been here 23 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have seen the benefits in our communities
Yes, ma'am.
of COP officers. And, you know, again, here I see you're going to take COP officers again. And I have a real problem with that because you've just put them back in the neighborhood. They're just getting back with the neighborhood and knowing what's going on and everything. So I really hate to see us take them again. I also hate to see us coming up with new groups and everything. In talking to police officers on patrol, they're tired. They are really tired. Their morale is low on a lot of them because they are really working, and as we all know, all they hear is people complaining about, hey, we need more, you're not doing enough and everything. I was at Pulaski County the other day, and the man who was checking me in to go upstairs and everything, he was an ex-police officer. And he's working over there, sitting behind a desk, checking people in all day long. I think we have a lots of police officers who would like to come and help us with our problems right now. When you ask people to do overtime, police officers, do you ever use the sergeants and lieutenants to do overtime in patrol?
I don't believe that we consistently will we have like a let's say a sergeant or a lieutenant that's actually on the overtime. For the most part, that would probably be individuals. Let's say we have 4 individuals that come in from 8 to 12 who are working to do saturation details in our problem areas. The shift supervisor or someone for that shift would be the primary person responsible for supervising those individuals. Am I correct on that? So when you talk about, in that question about sergeants and lieutenants working the overtime, if I already have a shift supervisor that's working, a lieutenant or a sergeant that's on the shift, and they can pretty much manage and direct the initiatives of what we're trying to get done with these officers, I'm less likely to want to put sergeants and lieutenants on overtime because of the pay rate that it gives me, and it sucks up my overtime more often. Because I can assure you that while we all say that we understand the problem, the pie that we're working from doesn't change. We can only take slices from other pieces. So if the directors are saying that we want to increase your overtime budget from $2.5 million to $5 million, we certainly will take it, and I will put sergeants and lieutenants on the overtime. But I can tell you that the reason that we don't do that is because of the cost, and we already have supervisors in many cases that are already working.
Okay, I'm sorry you didn't understand me.
Okay.
Okay, not as sergeants and lieutenants, but on overtime out in patrol cars doing patrol. I had one sergeant say that she and other sergeants and lieutenants would be happy to work as patrol officers out in the streets on some of this overtime to help the officers who's now working overtime, to give them some help. And what I was thinking of this was, you're going to have a new recruit class going out, and we just had a new recruit class. And I know some of these sergeants and lieutenants will probably not know how to operate the new equipment and everything. But for those young officers just going out, to have a sergeant or lieutenant just as a patrol officer in the car with them, 2 people in a car can answer calls a lot faster. So it would allow them to have somebody in there that could help them answer calls, but would also give them some experience. What is the average age of our patrol officer?
That I don't know. But John Gilchrist is in here. Now I know there's some HR concerns, and I know that philosophically we don't want sergeants or lieutenants operating in an officer capacity, but philosophically. But I think that there would be some contractual issues that we would not be able to have a sergeant work as an officer if he is civil service rank sergeant. Is that true or not?
It's true. You're going to have to pay them the rates, and it's going to be problematic in the sense that if they get involved in something and they have to start acting as a supervisor in lieu of a patrolman, you run into operational issues that are going
Which is kind of the management side of why we don't think that's a good model.
Okay,
It's also federal law.
you have 2 people who retired recently that you're bringing back to work on special projects, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you considered having others come back and this new group that you've got over here, instead of taking our COP officers and school resource officers, could you make this 10 additional officers, people who have retired that who are coming back just to work on a project?
Well, first I want to be clear about that. We're not taking away the COP. So if I'm a COP officer and my 40-hour week is for me to be a COP officer, we're asking them for 8 hours of that you be a part of this 10-person team that we're putting out daily. So you're having one of your days, so you have still 32 hours that you're functioning as a COP. That's the goal. Now something could change to where maybe we would have to do something different, but that's the structural goal of what we're going to do. And we welcome any of our good police officers to return back to the police department and apply for telephone reporting, traffic safety officer, and we would certainly, because number one, they understand the job, they're familiar with the process, and we certainly invite them to come back, because that means there's going to be less training, they're going to have good situational awareness that maybe a civilian may not have, so I certainly would welcome them coming back to apply for some of those jobs.
Well, you're looking over my shoulder now, because that was my next thing. Are you out here recruiting these retired officers for these positions, traffic safety and telephone reporting? Because you would not have to train them.
Well, we would certainly want to make sure that they're trained for what we're asking them to do for this new responsibility, because one of the first things that Mr. Carpenter gets on his letter when people are suing me for stuff that I have not done anything is they use 2 phrases: failure to train, failure to supervise. So I want to make sure that even though you may have been a 28-year officer, that we train you when you come back for the new thing. And have I been actively recruiting broadly individuals for some of these capacities? No, I have not. I have talked to some specific individuals about the homicide opportunity, because we know that we have some very talented people who have recently walked out the door that we feel that will be a good fit for that.
How many people have we had retire in the last year, do you know?
That I do not know. Again, our attrition rate is about 35-ish or so a year. Some of that's retirement, some of that's resignation, some of that's termination, some of that's disability.
Okay, on your CAD and your other things in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a dollar amount that we're putting into these new programs you're asking for?
Well, depending upon what we buy and if we do a kind of an overhaul of our current system, meaning put all basically new kind of functional meat and potatoes pieces to that, I think that's one price, maybe a few $1 million. If we're talking about completely replacing that and having a new system, you're probably talking about anywhere from $5 to $8 million.
Okay, and the telephone reporting unit and the traffic safety unit, do you have a price tag for those?
I do not know for the telephone reporting unit, but I know the number that has been given to us for traffic safety officers for the 12 individuals, which in theory is the number that we had. It would roughly add $300,000 a year to my budget.
Okay. Well, I completely support you on all this, because I'm like the other directors up here. I'm getting lots of telephone calls and lots of people, but I'm also hearing from lots of our police officers that's doing such a great job that they're tired. And I think that I'd like to ask everyone to thank a police officer.
And trust me, I know they're tired, and we sometimes even struggle, even though I know they want the money to get them to sign up for overtime because they're wore out. But that's why we're trying to get more relief. And the reason that we structured the plan the way we did when we kind of put this quilt together is because you and Ms. Wyrick are certainly in my brain about COP, that my hand was slapped hard enough that I certainly had that in the forefront to minimize the impact to that.
Okay. And lastly, you said that police can't do it all and everything.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're working with revitalizing the neighborhoods. And I'm sorry that Congressman Hill has left, because we're getting ready to lose lots of our CDBG funding, which helps us revitalize neighborhoods. And I think that's one thing that we really need to look at putting even more money in, is making these neighborhoods where a young person is proud of where he lives, and where people in that neighborhood are fixing up their homes, and where he can see that you pick up the trash because you're proud of it. And so I hope as we're doing this and PIT, that we also look at what can we do to make our neighborhoods the place that we would all want to live and where these young people can have pride in it.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Wyrick, you're recognized, please. Oh.
The good news in being at the end of the list, as a lot of the questions have already been asked, Chief.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I do have a few more. I do want to say that I appreciate you being here for quite a while, discussing what your plan is and what your processes are. And I think it's very important that at this time in our history in Little Rock that you bring that forward and people understand that there is a method, there is a process to trying to get the situations that we've seen in the last couple of weeks under control. I think one of the police officers said enough is enough. And when I heard the reports of the things going on this week, I just went, he's right, enough is enough. We've got to educate our public. We've got to know what the plan is. And you obviously have been working on it for a number of months in order to have this kind of detail put together. In past meetings with people in Southwest, I've always tried to encourage them, saying that if you're not running with the wrong people or you're not at the wrong hotspot, then chances of you being involved in a crime are very slim. And based on what's happening today, what's the percentage of the crimes that are happening today where there are known relationships?
I would say a significant percentage. We have from a violent crime standpoint. Now,
Right.
property crime is certainly different. But from a violent crime standpoint, a significant percentage of the individuals involved in violent crime, there's some kind of pre-existing relationship between the two. It may not be an intimate relationship, but there's some kind of a knowledge of each other, who's had some kind of agreement to come together for something, or conflict with each other, but there's some sort of pre-existing connection with the two. One of the exceptions to that violent crime would be robbery. In many instances, some of those individuals do not know the individual who has robbed them.
Okay, I was not sure that it was still a high percentage of relationships after the situation with the daycare worker and the shooting that happened there. But you're still saying that the relationships between individuals is still high.
Yes.
For the crimes that are happening.
Very much so.
Okay. I was at Southwest, our quarterly meeting Thursday, and of course Southwest still has the lowest crime in the city. Again, thank you, Captain Spriggs. But one of the things that I learned that they're doing a lot of, I believe it's called field interviews, field investigations,
Yes,
where
ma'am.
they're engaging individuals on the street.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're talking about the number of guns that they're collecting
Yes.
from doing those types of things. I tallied up 36, but there may have been more on the 7 to 3 shift. I didn't see any for that particular one, but 36 guns in 3 months. Are the other groups, the other precincts, are they doing the same sort of field interviews, and are they collecting a number of guns?
They are, and the gun numbers that you saw me put up here were reflective of VCATs. And so that's their activity. Patrol, our uniform division, they still get a lot of guns on the stops and the kinds of calls that they're responding to. And all 3 of the divisions, particularly our patrol divisions, have very similar initiatives that they're rolling out. And the field interviews is one of the things that we've really been pushing because it does us no good to have these mechanisms in place to gather and analyze information if we don't have accurate, good information in the system. So when we're coming into contact with individuals in some of these crime-infested areas, we want to be able to properly document that so that we can try to make some of the nexus between crime and individual and then some of the offenses that are occurring in our city.
Okay. I was impressed with the numbers that they were collecting, and was just curious to know if across the city, if we're doing the same thing. It seems like that we have lots of teenagers that have guns. Lots of teenagers, because when you read the reports in the newspaper of the shootings, then there's a lot of guns out there.
Yes.
Okay. The other question that I had, and I'm trying not to ask some that other people have already asked, when we look at the authorized strength is 595.
I believe it's 593.
593. I missed it by 2. Okay. And today we have 523.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include administrative as well as patrol?
The 523 number that you're seeing is reflective of our sworn workforce. We have about 140 or so civilians that we have, and I believe we have about 25 civilians vacancies that we have.
Okay. All right. So when you were showing the crime stats for 2010, 2014, and 2015,
Yes, ma'am.
what are the patrol numbers? People that are actually on patrol. Because 523 is
Patrol stays somewhere in the neighborhood of 175 to 200-ish is where we've been consistently staying. We would certainly like to have that number to consistently be above 200, but we're rarely are we there. And that's a number that at least I know that my predecessor had in his head. I don't know what the number was, 203 was a number that he had that he felt like should be what patrol's strength should be. The question that I have is I don't know what that formula is based upon, and I don't know how old that number is. So with the challenges that we have today, the number of calls of service that we have today,
Right.
which is why I would want a personnel study to see should that number be 250 today? Should it be 280 something? Do I have too many people in one unit, or do I not have enough in another? And that's one of the things that I want an independent eye to look at, to see what our numbers should be, what the shifts should be, and how we're deploying those resources.
So in 2015, that was the lowest number. We had 15,699 Part 1 offenses.
Yes, ma'am.
How many patrol officers did we have in 2015?
2015 patrol officers, I see right here about 526. Which is, and it's a very keen observation on your part. This is why you hear me preach about don't assume that there's always going to be a nexus in extra police to decrease in crime, because that's not always going to be the automatic outcome as a result of that. Because there are also, if you go and look at 2010, which was another year that we were sub 17,000 total offenses. In 2010, we were at 525. But some of the dynamics in our community have probably changed for these two numbers.
But that's sworn personnel.
That's correct.
That's not patrol. I'm interested in how many people do we have
That I
in
don't know
patrol?
what the number was for those, and I doubt if we even have that number in the system of what that number would have been at the time for those individual years there.
Well, it seems like that we would be working on the numbers that are in patrol, because that's what the people see, and they're the ones that are going out and doing the follow-up arrest, et cetera, from the calls. And so I'd be interested to know what that number is. Bruce may have it.
So Chief Thomas and I, as Chief Buckner mentioned, were the ones that sort of negotiated on that number at 203. We currently have 186 that are in patrol, and we still have individuals, I believe, that are in their FTO period. So that number will increase once they finish the FTO period.
Okay. So 203 is the number that we're looking for, and we're at 186. Okay. So if we get all of those 18 officers out there, if my math is right, my fuzzy math is right, we'd be at 204.
Yes, ma'am, and I also want to make it clear that the number that Mr. Moore is referencing that he and Chief Stewart came up with, that was considered to be the minimal staffing number,
Okay.
the 203.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. The other question that I had is, what do you think that we as the city board can do to help you with this battle that you're under, the siege that you're under?
First, I would say that we would say that we're under, but I will say this to you. Community, to get your constituents engaged in what we're doing as much as possible is a huge help for us, particularly those communities, those neighborhoods, those families that are the most impacted by what's going on. I can tell you that as a chief in a city that has its challenges, there are some things that I have that other chiefs are envy of, and that is every time that I went to Bruce and say that I need this or we have to have this, every time, even when it's big ticket items, we've gotten it. To case in point, there was an agency in Mississippi that was looking to do an audit of their hiring process. And IACP called me and asked me, is it okay to share our report with them? Well, of course, we said yes. I spoke to call to talk to the chief there because I thought that he wanted to speak with me about it, which was an error. They just wanted the report. So I asked him about, what you all are going to do, and he kind of chuckled. He said, man, we don't have the money to do this. He's not going to do a report. They don't have the funding to do so. Now, we certainly need to have this sense of urgency that Mr. Hines is talking about and everyone else has mentioned, because right now, we do have revenue in our city, and we're still growing from the 2010 census. We can show that we've had incremental growth, although minimal measurement, but we've had incremental growth. Not every city having these kinds of problems can say that. So I would ask you to continue to put public safety for the big piece of the pie, continue to make sure that we're having the kinds of resources that we need, and then more importantly, bring the people who call you to the table, not only for the complaint, but also to be a part of the solution. And particularly in these families where this stuff is going on, they have to do their part. They really have to do their part.
You mentioned resources.
Yes, ma'am.
What resources?
Well, I will tell you that a couple of things. First, I will always, when I talk about our officers, I'll always start with salaries and benefits. My old agency recently went away from having a pension. They now get kind of a hybrid 401k, some other kind of miscellaneous math that no one understands. We still pay into the pension. I would hate to see what our department would look like if we ever did something like that. So I would say continue to keep our agency in a pension system. I would also say that it's one thing to say that our salaries and benefits are competitive and exceed our competitors in the area as it relates to dollars and cents. But if you look at the workload that we ask them to do in comparison to what they pay, to which some agencies have gotten close to us, I think that everyone will see that there's opportunity to raise our people even more as it relates to salary. The other thing is I would say continue to some of the things that you all are doing with equipment. Technology is a big one. And then another sore spot for us are our facilities and our vehicles.
Is there anything other than what you've identified here as far as technology that's needed?
With the technology piece, Mr. Moore asked us to look at Shot Spotter. Asked me to look at a Shot Spotter, which is some technologies that some cities use.
Shot Spotter, yeah.
Yes, sir. And we have a gentleman coming in from one of these organizations that actually does that on May the 16th. That's a piece of technology. Some of the analyst software and stuff, we want to be able to continue to do those things. Make sure that we're putting, one of the things that we would like to, right now, when we get a new vehicle, in many instances, we take some of our old computers and put them in our new cars. We bought a lot of cars over the past couple of years. Well, we'd like to be able to have the new technology with that too. A lot of this is a want, and I certainly understand. I'm one of 14 departments, and he reminds me of that every time I ask for money. But those are some of the things that we would like. And then some of our facilities, can continue our commitment, and we certainly have plans to have a new headquarters, but make sure that we deliver on that. And then in any of our other facilities that need to be upgraded or something replaced or something done with them, continue to do those kinds of things.
Okay, and most of those were identified on the last sheet.
Yes.
The personnel study, it seems like that's an important thing to do.
I think it is.
That?
The IACP folks are waiting to hear back from us because we have roughly $40,000 left over from our VRN money, and they've asked us what we want to do with it. I put that as my number one priority because I knew it was a big ticket item. Personnel study should cost about $80,000 or so, which means the city would only have to pay the other $40,000. But I think that's very important for us to have a picture of how our organization should be put together and how we go about doing business.
Because you mentioned the patrol, the 203 was the low number, and so we need to find out what the number should be.
What the operational number, yes ma'am.
Yeah, and then the sworn versus civilian, what they can do. And so how long would this personnel study take?
Oh, well, it took us about 3 months or so for the audit, for the hiring process. I would say 4 months probably to do it because you're talking about coming in and looking at your agency from top to bottom, a number of interviews, compiling all of the data, and then taking that data back and going back and analyzing that and then spitting out what we should look like. So I would say probably 4 months or so would probably be minimal.
In the fall,
Yes,
maybe we can
yes,
hear
ma'am.
about that. And you notice I didn't badger you about COP.
Yes, but Miss Adcock got me already.
I let her do my heavy on COP.
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Campiris, you're recognized, please.
I'm not sure there's many things to ask you. I want to commend you on the great job you're doing and your honesty. It's fun to listen to you talk because you do give frank, honest answers, and it's nice and refreshing to hear. Let me ask you a couple things that maybe we haven't covered.
Yes, sir.
And this is taking off of something BJ said. Can you give us a little better idea for the public? Because one of the questions that I'm constantly asked is, if you have this increased number of homicides and you have this increased number of shootings,
Yes, sir.
can you give us a general feeling for why you think that's occurring, other than people knowing each other and the location?
A great question. I think that it's very broad and it's probably different for each individual homicide. I will tell you some of the common denominators are some kind of relationship between the two, some sort of conflict that has occurred between those individuals. There's certainly a gang element that's a part of that, some of the old ties, and many of the people that were sent away 15, 20 years ago, those individuals are getting back out or they're been recently released in our community. And then the other part of that is just some of the old Little Rock stuff in some of these same areas that have some of the same conditions from the 90s. Those conditions still exist today, which is a recipe for the kinds of crime that we're seeing. I think that many of the things that we're seeing as far as the spike, which is why I think that there's an emphasis to try to get some of these cold case clearances up. If you're an individual who's committed a violent assault or a shooting or a homicide, and you've never been arrested or you've never been held accountable for that, you're more likely to do that again on your next dispute. So that's why we want to make sure that we're getting good clearance, getting good information, witnesses coming forward, so that we can try to hold some of these individuals responsible for that. But with our shootings, again, we see minimal cooperation from our victims and witnesses involved with our shootings. We do a little bit better with homicide, but also we've had some things from Mr. Moore that you've seen that we've done with some of our high-profile cases where we've increased the amount of money that we're offering for people to come forward, which has helped us out.
Which brings me to my next question. When people are released from prison, where are they released?
Oh, man, you hit it. Here's the problem. All of our bad apples come back to Little Rock. And so does many other of the cities in our state's bad apples because they meet these Little Rock people in prison, or if I'm in a community of 1,500 people and everybody knows that I'm a thief, or they know that I have this problem, this or that, it's a lot easier for me to go and kind of assimilate in Little Rock than it would be for some of these other communities. So the problem is our prison folks will tell you, we get a lot of people who are not Little Rock residents who want to return here coming out of prison, and that's a problem.
Well, how are we addressing that issue?
Well, I don't know, how much you can do about that. We have no control over where someone is released, but I can tell you that certainly is an issue.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's a very complicating issue to
Yes.
this. And again, going along from what BJ was saying, and other than technology, what other things have been done in other cities to help with your job and your officer's job as far as how the community can help you? I think that I don't think any of us don't think that there's any of us have all the answers. And I think borrowing, stealing other good ideas is the very appropriate thing to do.
Yes, sir.
So what other things have you heard, seen in other cities done to help you in your job?
Cities that have had some measurable long-term success have been able to effectively to address the socioeconomical issues in their crime-infested areas, which requires heavy lifting. It requires long-term strategies, but because you don't fix youth overnight, you don't fix schools overnight, you don't fix families overnight, but it requires a commitment to address the conditions that these individuals are living in that result in them turning to criminal behavior.
Well, and I agree with you completely. I mean, I think that's the root of most of these issues. But can you give us some specifics? Not right now.
Yes, sir.
But could you give us some things that we as a community or as a board can do that you've seen work in other communities? I mean, if that's the root of the problem and we all understand it, then someone else has tried to address this somewhere along the line. And then to my last suggestion, I know you have a hotline for tips on trying to solve issues and problems.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever tried to have a hotline where citizens can call in and say, I think this is a way that we can make policing easier, my community is better, the city better, that you could, with some periodicity, publish for all of us to see?
We certainly don't have a mechanism like that right now. I think the closest thing that we would have to that is, I do an annual forum in all of the wards, and then I do an additional one in Southwest to where people will come forward. And then there are quarterly meetings to where we're engaged with the public, but nothing specific to your point to where someone who may have an innovative idea as to something they might be able to suggest to give us that information, and then you would be able to have access to that. I mean, I have some very savvy tech folks that we could probably create something like that.
It seems to me that to answer Ken's question, why are we here? Because we've had enough. All of us have had enough. And I think the mayor did a great job of saying, let's get together.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was an easy answer to this, you and your cabinet would have given us some direction on what to do, and it would have said X, Y, and Z, and this is what we're going to do. And I think the part of the stool that we leave out, going back to your analogy of three parts of what happens, is that we have you, we have the board, but we don't involve the community enough with great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think getting the community involved, not to say do this or do that,
Mm-hmm.
or you're not doing this or you're not doing that, but to say these are some things that I can do, much like the lady you were talking about, much like the former gang members having a group of 10 or 15 kids.
Yes, sir.
Things that we could say are positive ideas that then we could refer to Lance and his group and start saying, if these are things that we can verify and we can say look like they work, should we be funding it to make a difference in the community? And I think that having some sort of mechanism where you can receive and then publish suggestions from the community would be a good way to say to the community, we're listening, and it's not a yearly thing, you going out and say, what can we do?
Yes, sir. If you ask me, Chief, if you had a silver bullet, and what would you use it on to be able to penetrate something in our city that you feel that would move our ball the furthest down the field, I would say get behind Mr. Poor and fix our school system.
And you know I'm there with you on that completely. I mean, as is this board.
Yeah.
But it is the number one problem we have, and we have to fix it.
Yes, sir.
And we have to be honest about it, that it's not a system that's working very well
Yes,
right
sir.
now, and let's get it done. But I appreciate you saying so, but I hope you look into seeing if there's
I
a way.
will. I
that-
have it on my list here, and I'll follow up with you.
That if we start saying to the citizens, we're more engaged, we want you to be more engaged, then there may be some things that they've thought about that none of us have thought about. And so I'll end on that note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of follow-ups, but they were for the city manager, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the CAD program. Mr. Moore, I thought when we went through the sales tax and bond initiative that we replaced all of the equipment and upgraded everything.
We replaced all the radios. The CAD system is computer-aided dispatch, and we upgraded the the hardware, but not the software, though. So that's the issue. We have spent some money on upgrading the hardware, but we have not. There's a newer version of the CAD, and so what we're looking at now is can our current provider that we've invested on the capital side in, can they provide the new software that that we need, that the police and fire need? And so they've come back and said, here's the things we can do, here's the things we can't do. Randy and his group and the police are going through that, and the fire chief to determine, and we're gonna have to do this in phases. Either way, I mean, I don't have we don't have $5 to $7 million, but when we come back with our next short-term note in a few weeks, I do have a recommendation to set aside about $1.3 million to begin to do the first phase of it. But I'm still trying to decide: can we use our current system since we have invested in it from a capital standpoint, or do we need a whole new system?
Okay, thank you. Now, this question is for Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter, some time back I asked you to research the law as it relates to our zoning in regards to where we allow these convenience stores to locate in the poor neighborhoods. You were supposed to come back to me with some type of policy or guidance, I should say guidance, not policy, as to what we could and could not do, because this is an issue. And these type of stores, they sell single items of liquor and alcohol and that kind of thing, and they're predominantly in the low to moderate income areas. And this also kind of segues into our criminal abatement program and why it has no teeth. Right now, we have a multi-million-dollar investment right there in our new community center, and I have a place of business next door that sells illegal alcohol. They get out there on the parking lot, and you hear gunshots, and this stuff's been going on for years. And I know this has been turned in. The owner of the property called me and said he knew that it had been turned in. The staff had contacted him, but nothing has been done. So those two questions: what happened to the guidance on these convenience stores and our zoning as it relates to zoning, and why our criminal abatement program has no teeth?
Director Wright, as I remember the question was whether we could put a spacing requirement on convenience stores that sold any type of alcoholic beverages if they were located within a certain distance of a liquor store. That was the question. And I thought I sent you the email that said we already have in place an ordinance that deals with certain spacing requirements for certain types of use of schools, and I thought that we could do one. I couldn't find anything that would prohibit us from doing such an ordinance of that nature for what you wanted. But I have no idea what to make that setback to be. In terms of the...
Okay, let's get to that. I don't recall getting an email from you. If you could send that to me again.
But that's the answer.
Then I will give you what I think, or I will talk, I'll share that with my colleagues, and perhaps we can come up with something, because I know that this has come up over the years. I've heard Director Richardson address this, and I know I've addressed this. And when I got the Sunshine Mart, I was concerned because it's right across the street from a liquor store. And as you know, the drama that I've had with that particular establishment. So if you will take care of that, I would appreciate it and get me that information. Now, if you will answer the question about our criminal abatement program.
The criminal abatement program, the problem that the city has with criminal abatement is it has to show that the entity caused the problem. And the classic example of this is a store called Pick Pack. The Arkansas Supreme Court struck down a favorable ruling for the city, saying that while we could show that there was loitering and while we could show that there were people doing things outside the store, we couldn't show that the store actually caused it. And because the owners of the store would call us and tell us, and would put out signs about no loitering, and would tell us that there were problems there, the owner of the store couldn't be held liable for that. The meat or the teeth in the criminal abatement program, and the mayor was very instrumental in getting the state law passed on this, is that if it is shown to be a nuisance like that, we can take the title to the store. And we've had 2 or 3 occasions where we've gone after a particular building, not for alcohol so much, but that's the problem. I mean, if I don't know what's going on with is it the Sunshine Mart that you mentioned? I don't know what's going on there, but if the owner of the store is calling the police and saying people are loitering, the state Supreme Court says we can't do anything to the store for that. So that, I know that there was an effort to try to change that in the last legislative session. I don't remember what the result was, but I don't think it got anywhere.
So in other words, our criminal abatement program is going to continue to be really kind of meatless?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, we've shut down a number of drug houses. We've gotten people moved out quickly. The letters that we send to the owners, which are often not the people that are doing the things in them, have led to a number of people being moved out of a house. And, we've had that. What we don't have is the pick pack, I mean, it's like, great, you're calling us and telling us this, but this keeps happening in your business or in your area, and you've got some responsibility for it. That's the place where we have problems with enforcement. I mean, the only thing I think you could do there is have a cop there 24 hours. We've got cameras there. We've got cameras that we check at night. I think we've even got the ability, one captain told me, to basically call out on a microphone and say, hey, cut that out, and people would flee. But, unless you're right there 24 hours a day, that doesn't work.
I would love that kind of attention on Foster Street. I'm sure you know the area I'm talking about. I hadn't gotten it, and I don't know why we hadn't been able to take those apartments, because they are a nuisance. Look it up. You'll see it's in the criminal abatement. Mr. Moore is familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that answers my constituents' questions in that regard. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is going to be real brief. Chief, BJ asked you a minute ago, what can the city do to help you? Would giving more employment opportunities help you in areas where we have a high concentration of unemployment, underemployment? Would that have any impact on the crime in those areas? Because some parts of our city, we say unemployment is about 5%, 6%.
Right.
But I suspect the areas where you have the most concentration with your crime is anywhere 10 to 20%. So
probably quadruple.
Well, quadruple, that's great. I was trying to be nice. Would an increase in employment opportunities in those areas for young people, would that help make your job any easier?
It would, and to your point, when we talk about a comprehensive approach, that's what I mean by go in with all of the resources that you have to that particular area. Let there be a strong focus in your after-school program there. Let there be a strong focus in your efforts to employ individuals in those areas. Because if you know that the crime is concentrated there, then your services should be concentrated there, which I think will give us an opportunity to be able to help some of these individuals out of the conditions that they have. But there's always going to be that small percentage who still choose to be a criminal. But I don't think that everyone committing a crime necessarily wants to live that life forever. I mean, there actually are some people who I think that would less likely maybe do something like that if they had a job. But it's difficult to get a job when you have an extensive criminal record.
Right.
And if I have the choice between someone with no record and an individual with an extensive record, at my pick pack, I'm going to hire the individual with no record.
Right. So to those who've been advocating that approach for a number of years, I'd say thank you for giving us that answer, to hear you sing from the same hymnal, because a lot of folks have been pushed for that. But to hear our chief of police say that, echo that, I think it means a lot. And to Dean and Lance's point, my point about why now is a magical, majestical moment was it would be hard for me to tell somebody why now as opposed to why we didn't do it when a 2-year-old or 3-year-old got murdered. I couldn't explain it then, so that wasn't to be confrontational or combative. It's just to raise an issue that I've been asked questions. Why now? Why did we do it? We didn't do this. We didn't have this meeting when we had a 2-year-old baby or a 3-year-old baby within close timeline of each other get murdered. So I couldn't explain that to her. I wasn't trying to be combative. Just I didn't have an answer for that question.
A couple of quick clarifications too. I want to make sure that PICPAC is also shown in a positive light. They collectively have met with us to ask what can they do to help us try to protect their respective area there for that little plaza. We told them to certainly police their parking lots and also to hire off duty because we can't sit there all day and try to help with that. And I think it's helped some for the downtown division. So I don't want to act like that they're not trying to help us, because when we did the research that Mr. Carpenter is talking about, a third of the calls that we received about PICPAC came from the businesses. Lastly, one other thing, Mayor, Ms. Wyrick asked about, some of the things that we could do. We recently went to Indianapolis to look at their wellness program. They have a wellness program for police officers to kind of address the mental, physical issues that go on with police and being able to try to address some of those things. FOP had representatives there, and we certainly, that's one of the things that we want to try to look at to see, to all of your point, that, our officers are tired, but they also struggle with some of the same things that members of our community struggle with. They want to be able to provide the kinds of services to them to be able to help them with those issues rather than maybe pushing them out the back door all of the time for those individuals who are legitimately dealing with some issues.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
This is for Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, after Future Little Rock and other initiatives, we've had updates. And I think it's been about 2 years since we did the Master Youth Plan. I would like for you to prepare us an update on that.
On the Youth Master Plan?
Youth Master Plan.
Okay.
It has.
Okay, well, that I think that concludes many of the questions that board members have. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been about 3 hours that you've been presenting and responding to questions, and I appreciate your candor and your honesty and your approach to these issues, and I want to thank your command staff and your executive team. I know that all of the people here, and it includes the citizens that are here and that were here, care about our cities very much, and they care and want to make our city a safer place, and that's what we all want to do. So, when I look at this, and Mr. Moore, there's a couple of things that certainly we as a board want to follow up on. And just to Director Richardson's point, we understood that there was a family-type retaliation that was going on. There's a $40,000 reward out there.
Yes, sir.
To provide information on the shooting of that 2-year-old child.
Yes, sir.
And so, again, the point that has been made that needs to be made again is that we need the help of the community to bring the people that are responsible for these kinds of actions to justice, and that has escalated. So the reason for, and it has continued to escalate, which is why we are here today. And so there's some short-term and long-term issues, and we've talked about those. The short-term issue is how we can get some of the shootings stopped and the killing stopped. And so I appreciate the fact of looking at how we can take and turn this telephone reporting unit in and get more police officers on the streets. Mr. Moore, I know you're going to come back to us and where we can do the civilian traffic safety unit, so again we can get more police officers on the streets. I hope we can work on shortening this retention or
Yes.
the application process.
Yes, sir.
And I know that John Gilchrist, the president of the FOP, is here. John, I wish you and Bruce would get together immediately and let's talk about how we can find some incentives or benefits that will allow people that have the experience to stay on our police force longer. And certainly adding a second violent crime prevention unit and focusing on those target areas that we know where we know the people, we know where they are, I hope will help to stem the issue short term of the violence. And lastly, let me just say that we have a lot of community programs. We put $5.5 million in it. We want to make sure that they're working effectively. We've got a reentry program. If there's more that needs to be done, then we want to hear about that. And we want our community involved. We want the community to tell us and give us their good suggestions. I know they've got a lot of suggestions, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to be good ones. And so that's why we're going to recess this meeting until 5 o'clock on Tuesday. With the message to our citizens to come and visit with us and to come with constructive, and I ask because we're all in this together, to come with constructive ideas on how we can do the job better to keep our citizens safer. So with that, is there a motion to recess? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.